across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good evening. Welcome to the Evening Exchange, on until 10 o'clock this Friday night because of the seismic changes that have happened in Britain over the course of the local elections in England and the Scottish and Welsh elections too. Labour have done very badly in England. In Scotland, the SNP are down a little bit but still in control. But Wales is the big story for Labour. They've been in power there, essentially dominant for a century, and indeed since 1999 they've always been in government in the Welsh Assembly. Now their leader, the First Minister of Wales, Baroness Morgan, she has lost her seat. Nigel Farage jubilant at Reform's performance. 1,198 councillors they have at this exact moment. Labour have just 748 from these elections, down over 1,000. Lib Dems up a little bit. The Conservatives down 466 as I speak to you right now at 3 minutes past 7. The Green Party have done reasonably well. They're up 269 seats from a reasonably low base, so they'll be very happy about that too. And Zach Polanski quite rightly has said the era of two-party politics in this country is over. There's so much to talk about tonight. What should Keir Starmer do now? What should Nigel Farage do now? Where does our country go? What do these councils do? What do you think their priorities should be? Things are changing significantly politically. It may be 3 years until another general election. I think it'll perhaps be less than that. It'll be fascinating to see what happens in that time. And the die has been cast for a possible Nigel Farage prime ministerial period. What do you think? Tell me your thoughts this evening. We'll get as many calls, texts, tweets and voice notes on the air as we can. This is my show, but it's your show too, and it's a momentous day in politics in this country. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10. Stay with us here on Talk. Right then, let's see what the political leaders have been saying. Nigel Farage says it's a historic day for British politics. I think he's right. This is what he's been saying.
But I think overall what's happened is a truly historic shift in British politics. We've been so used to thinking about politics in terms of left and right, and yet what Reform are able to do is to win in areas that have always been conservative, but equally we're proving in a big way we can win in areas that Labour have dominated, frankly, since the end of World War I.
Nigel Farage speaking earlier today. Keir Starmer under huge amounts of pressure. The vultures are circling for him. He says he's going nowhere. This is what the Prime Minister has said.
Let me be clear, these are really tough results. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And we have lost brilliant Labour representatives, people who put so much into their communities, so much into our party and our movement. And the voters have sent a message about the pace of change, how they want their lives improved. I was elected to meet those challenges, and I'm not going to walk away from those challenges and plunge the country into chaos.
Zach Polanski is the leader of the Green Party. He says that the era of two-party politics in this country is over. I think he's absolutely right, especially when you look at the performance of Reform UK, the Green Party and others as well. Even Restore Britain has 10 councillors as we speak at 5 minutes past 7. Let's see what Zach Polanski, the leader of the Green Party, has been saying today.
Two-party politics is not just dying, it is dead and it is buried. And actually, whether it's here that Labour have been rejected or whether we're seeing around the country, it's very clear that the new politics is the Green Party versus Reform. I said that the Green Party were going to replace Labour. That's exactly what we did in Gorton and Denton. It's what we've done in Hackney, and we're seeing that right across the country.
What about the Conservatives? Remember them? Well, Kemi Badenoch says they've done a reasonably good job. This is even though they're down 480 seats. This is what the Conservative leader has been saying today.
We need people to know that hope is coming. The Conservatives have to come back because, my goodness, this country needs us. We are coming back to fight for our high streets. We are coming back to fight for hard-working people. We are coming back to fight for businesses. We are coming back to fight for veterans, for parents, for farmers. We're coming back to to stamp out anti-Semitic hatred on our streets. We are coming back to deliver a stronger economy. We're coming back to deliver a stronger country. And we are coming back to get Britain working again. Thank you, everyone.
Well, a very big day in Wales and what has happened there. Fascinating to see just some of the numbers there. Plaid Cymru have got another 20 members of the Welsh Assembly. Of course, the number of seats has changed, and indeed the voting boundaries and the electoral system. So it was a very, very hard election to in any way predict. But what the prediction that came right was that Reform did well and Labour did appallingly. Plaid Cymru up 20 seats at 43. Not enough for a majority. 96 of the 96 seats have been declared. Reform UK up 34 to 34 seats. Labour down 35, only 9 seats. This is a party which has been in power in Labour. In Wales, I should say, Labour in Wales since 1999, since the Welsh Assembly was a thing. The Conservatives down 22 on 7. They've had a catastrophic day in Wales, even as Kermie Badenoch says they're coming back. I think she's far too optimistic. The Green Party on 2 and Liberal Democrats on 1. The Welsh First Minister, Baroness Morgan, Eluned Morgan, has lost her seat. Let's see the moment that happened.
I'm very proud of what Welsh Labour has achieved over all the years we have led in the Senedd. But today, the pressures on public services are enormous. That change is clearly not coming fast enough. We're living in turbulent times. There are challenges in all directions. Many expect simple answers to very complex questions. But there are no simple answers, and the budgets are limited. The age of two-party dominance is dead. We need to recognise that multiple parties are now in contention across Wales.
I think she's just stating the obvious there. She no longer has a job, having been the most powerful person in Wales as the First Minister. Timothy Dolan's been in touch from Barnsley in South Yorkshire and says, "Great show. I've lived in Barnsley, South Yorkshire all my life. There's a saying, you could put a red rosette on a donkey and you will win in Barnsley. Reform have now won Barnsley. It says something when a vote for a donkey will win, but a vote for Keir Starmer won't. No disrespect to the Prime Minister," says Timothy. Nigel says Labour have collapsed in England, Scotland and Wales, all of different majorities. He cannot blame Reform. Labour are entirely to blame what is sensational today and history tomorrow. Amanda says, "Good evening, Peter. What a day. I don't really care if Starmer stays or goes. Nigel and Reform must now stand strong to deal with the left, who will now play dirty in their usual vile way." One more before we go to Isabel Oakeshott is Steve in a Suffolk village near Bury St Edmunds. He says, "It strikes me that Labour are done and dusted. You said the Green Party have done well, but only in the areas where diversity and the LGBT and pro-Gaza support prevails. I live in Suffolk and I'm delighted that Reform UK have taken complete control. The next election is theirs to lose." I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I think it would be a sensation if Reform UK won the next election with a majority. I think that is a very tough thing, especially in a very fragmented system. Let's get the expert view of Isabel Oakeshott. She is Talk's international editor. Isabel, what a day, my goodness.
Yes, I mean, we're seeing, a revolution really in British politics, but with the caveat that it looks really very difficult to for those who want to get rid of this government, to force an early general election. And that means we've got another 3 years of all sorts of unknown unknowns at this point in British politics, which could switch things all around in ways that you and I can't possibly predict. So, I'm with you that there's a mountain to climb for a very relatively new, still really new actually in historic terms, party.
Yes.
Like Reform UK. I only hesitate there because there are newer parties in Reform UK that probably have similar ambitions, but still, for a relatively new party to break through the two-party grip would be sensational, and no one underestimates the scale of that challenge. But what Nigel Farage will be taking massive encouragement from tonight is the number of ground troops he now has. People in significant positions of authority and influence all across the country. And I think the numbers are great already for reform. Over 1,200 council seats gained, and more to come, I imagine. So extraordinary.
Yeah, there's plenty more to come because there's so many seats that just haven't been declared yet. We only have 110 of 136 councils. Lots more to come there. Restore Britain has 10 councillors. We know that your party has done particularly badly as well, and some of their results have been kind of embarrassing. We certainly don't have a two-party system anymore, but when we look at the smaller parties, and we'll come to the big ones in a second, Isabel, a very mixed picture.
Yes, I mean, Restore, we're only standing in Great Yarmouth, where Rupert Lowe is as an independent MP. I don't want to be churlish. That sounds like it was a pretty good result on that very local basis. But there is a world of difference between standing a handful of candidates in your own constituency and trying to organise a national movement with thousands of candidates, thousands of people wanting to stand for your party, having to try and filter through them all. I mean, gargantuan task, setting up branches all over the country. Frankly, a nightmare task. Of course, those who are involved truly believe in the mission, so they don't resent the challenge, but it's huge. You need an enormous machine, a lot of volunteers, and frankly, a lot of money too. So I'm sure it's very encouraging for those who support Rupert Lowe's party, but it's tiny in the grand scheme.
Speaking of people who are very optimistic, Kemi Badenoch was talking about the Conservatives being back today. I mean, they've lost 469 councillors in England already, and when it comes to other parts of the country as well, I mean, they've done catastrophically badly in Wales. They have, let me just bring this up here, they've lost 22 seats and they only have 7 members of the Welsh Assembly. In Scotland too, they're down to 4 from 5. She cannot really claim that the Conservatives have done particularly well. It's sort of, look over there, Labour have done catastrophically. I just wonder what you make of the Conservative picture here.
Well, I mean, I listened to that speech by Kemi Badenoch with some astonishment. She stood up in front of the television cameras and microphones and declared that the Conservatives are coming back, as if they haven't just lost hundreds of seats. And I think she has personally done better lately. But the problem is her party is what it is. Her parliamentary party is full of people whose ideology and positions on the kind of issues that are losing them votes to reform are frankly closer to the Lib Dems than anything I would ever call conservative. I mean, the Conservative Party is ceasing to exist as a national force. It's still there, but it does face an existential threat. And I think she's on another planet if she thinks this is an indication of the Conservative Party coming back.
What are the kind of conversations that you've been hearing about in Labour? Certainly people I've been speaking to are just saying, look, there's despair, they're knackered after an election campaign, and they feel that perhaps Keir Starmer might be for the knacker's yard. Well,
I mean, I'm almost more surprised by the number of people that are saying he's not for the knacker's yard, including the man himself, who's making it perfectly clear that, he may be a dead horse, but everyone is going to have to carry on flogging him. He's just going to stay. And there's been a range of voices coming out already, and it is quite early days. We haven't got all the results through. And already on this Friday evening, there's been quite a variety of Labour voices, some that have said, look, now's not the time, we've just got to stick with Keir Starmer. It doesn't serve us well to have a leadership contest yet. And then I think there's a total of 10 Labour MPs who have made other noises. It seems evident to me that well, I don't actually want to make this prediction because so much can happen over the next couple of days. But what is obvious is that Keir Starmer is not going to go willingly. And it's going to take quite some shoving to get him out.
They never do, though, Isabel, do they? I mean, they always want to cling on to power as long as they can.
I mean, that's human, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, once you get to Downing Street, how many people are willingly giving that up? But nonetheless, it's quite impressive, his sort of tin ear on this. He just doesn't seem to understand that this is a message from voters, not that, as he put it, you know, they want the pace of change to be faster, except in relation that they want him to be out of that door faster.
I don't know if you've seen the front cover of the New Statesman magazine, the Labour-leaning political magazine, but it has him as the sort of Monty Python soldier saying, "'Tis but a flesh wound." It has kind of Keir Starmer, the guy gets all his limbs cut off. So clearly they are seeing the writing on the wall there. Isabel, thank you. Always great to talk to you. Superb analysis as always. That's Isabel Oakeshott there, Talk's international editor on the local elections. Mark in Kirkcaldy in Fife says, "I'm feeling really down today. I live in Scotland. I voted Reform, where there's been another clean sweep for the SNP, who are changing the country into something I don't recognise. As a person who's doing quite well in life, I feel very alone and targeted in a far left country," says Mark. Sally says, "I'm disappointed Reform didn't make it in Wales, but we are behind on the effects of immigration currently. I'm sure this will change with Plaid's country of sanctuary policy. Can't believe Anthony Slaughter got a seat. He is very, very strange in Sally's view, especially when he's asked about trans issues." Well, certainly Reform did very well, Sally. They got 34 seats. I mean, that is more than a third of the number of seats in the Welsh Assembly, and coming from a very low base, I think they can be very proud of that. They probably weren't going to take a majority, and indeed Plaid haven't taken a majority, even though they've had a really, really good night, up 20 to 43. I want to speak to Sharon in Wigan. Sharon, you're very welcome to the programme. I think it's the first time you've given us a ring. Tell us what's on your mind this evening.
It's certainly the first time. Thank you so much for taking the call. I just want to say I am so proud to be one of the people in Wigan who have stood up against that 50-year wall of Labour. There was only 25 seats up for grabs in our town, and Reform have won 24, and the 25th was won by an independent.
I mean, that is an astonishing result for Reform UK in Wigan, which is just, when I think of Wigan, I just think Labour. I mean, that is a real change, and Wigan is somewhere where we can really see in real time the tectonic plates of this country's politics changing. What about you, Sharon? What was your own sort of political move in all of this? What was your thinking?
I'm with a lot of people. I think Reform are our last hope, and I feel the stirrings of hope. I genuinely do.
Were you previously a Labour voter, do you mind me asking, Sharon?
No, I've been Conservative in the past. I've never been Labour.
Okay.
But I was so disheartened by the Rishi Sunak mess that I didn't want to vote at all. And I always have, because of the suffragettes. It gave me the right to do so. But I voted willingly with an open heart, and I am so proud that I'm one of those people in Wigan.
And what do you want? I mean, obviously Nigel Farage isn't a councillor in Wigan, but what do you want Reform to do for Wigan? What needs to be done in Wigan? What do you want Nigel Farage to do for the country?
I want all of these Reform councils to do I want them to perform well and show what they can do with all of these, housing and multiple occupancy, and just do really well with the local issues, so that when we come up for a general election, look what we're doing already without the power. Think about what we can do when we've got it.
Sharon, great call. Really good to talk to you. Thank you for that. Have a lovely weekend. Lorraine's been in touch and says, "I'm so disappointed that Plaid are now the major party in Wales. Those who voted Plaid have effectively voted for Labour on steroids. Plaid supported the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits against the wishes of the electorate. They support unvetted immigration, and Wales is a nation of sanctuary, and the education system will be decimated further by the increase of Welsh nationalism and language in the curriculum. I do feel that what may be Plaid's biggest victory will also be its downfall. At Reform, it will benefit as the electorate realise Plaid are not the catchy party they purport to be." Andy says Kemi now needs to sit down, Kemi Badenoch needs to sit down every single one of her MPs, make them state their beliefs, and simply remove the whip from those who do not believe in her project. It will be brutal, but it means she can truly rebuild the Conservatives. I cannot trust the Tories, but I do like Kemi, says Andy. That's a very interesting perspective. I mean, she only has 121 elected Conservative MPs. I think there are fewer now because of the defections and various bits and pieces, 117, 118. So I mean, if she sits them down and removes the whips from those who say they don't agree with her, what option will she have then? Melanie in Staffordshire says Isabel Oakeshott earlier on referred to the Conservative Party as Lib Dems wearing blue. It is most interesting that she does not apply this reasoning to her own political party, which is comprised of defected Tories. Well, as far as I know, Isabel Oakeshott actually isn't a member of Reform UK. She is, of course, as she openly says, in the fiancé of the deputy leader there. Does that really matter, says Melanie, as long as the political parties have clear strategies and targets which are put into action? Sally says, disappointed Reform didn't make it in Wales, but we are behind on the effects of immigration currently. I'm sure this will change. Thank you to Keith as well. He says, well done on calling these elections for what they are, Peter. Labour and Tory MPs appearing to be delusional. They need to be called out for what they are. Is it me, or does Starmer and his front bench not realise what the country feel about them? They just will not go, says Keith. Right then, I want to know from you, what should happen now? Where should Labour go? What should Starmer do? What do you want Reform to do? Especially if, like our caller from Wigan there, if there are changes in your area, what do you want Reform to do? What do you want Plaid to do if you're in Wales, for example, or Reform UK with its 34 members of the Welsh Assembly to do? There's a lot of possibility here. Elections bring change and they bring possibility, they bring potential. What do you want to happen with these changes? I'm really, really interested in your views this evening, so please do let me know. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Peter Cardwell! It just so happens that it's all "you're amazing." Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Anna has been in touch from Surrey. This is what she said.
Good evening, Peter. Anna, sorry. Today I very rapidly saw the sense of jubilation plummet into resentment and anger. Yes, Reform are doing what we want to do, but we've now had to tolerate Labour, Tory, Lib Dem standing up and telling us that we didn't really understand what we were voting for and they're going to come and fix everything. There's a palatable sense of rage out here that Starmer won't go. I don't see any joy in the next 12 months, and I do fear for what comes next. I think things will simmer over. I don't think this has helped anything. Thank you, Peter. Bye-bye.
Anna, thank you. Thanks for your message, and hello to your cat as well. There's clearly a lot at stake here. I really do feel things are moving, things are changing in our country. They're moving in a way that people want them to, and of course democracy is the best bit of our society. And Anna, you know, you're talking about unrest there, you're talking about people being unhappy. All I would say is, you know, there will be people turning up for their jobs as councillors on Monday. They will do so peacefully, and there are people who have been councillors who are no longer councillors, or members of the Welsh Assembly or members of the Scottish Assembly, who will clear out their desks, who will go off, hopefully find another job and something else to do in life. And that happens peacefully. That's a democracy, and that is one of the great things that we've got to remember at times like this, that we live in a country where that happens. There aren't military coups, there aren't generals who become leaders of countries and suppress people and repress people, and that's why, you know, talking about things like regime change in Iran, for example, is because we want those people to have the freedoms that we have. We may not like it, we disagree with a lot of our political leaders. I disagree with many political leaders. I feel very politically homeless, and I hesitated quite a lot before I voted the way I did yesterday. I'm not going to tell you which way I voted, but I certainly thought about it quite a lot. It's interesting just looking at some of the English council results as well. Labour have lost 25 councils. They're down over 1,000 councillors. They have 25 councils, having lost 25, down from 50. The Liberal Democrats have gained 1 council up to 13. Reform UK, 10 new councils that they have gained. The Conservatives have lost 6 and are on 8. Greens have gained 3 councils, and there's no overall control in 54 councils, which is up 17, which I think shows, again, as Anna was kind of referencing there, and Isabel Oakeshott a little bit earlier on, the very fragmented nature of politics in this country. Let's go to the debate desk, as we always do at this time. I'm delighted that Lucy Beresford is with me, the psychotherapist and broadcaster. Very good evening to you, Lucy. Hello. And a very interesting day. Phil Dave is with us, the talk presenter too. Hello, Phil.
Hello, Peter. Very interesting day today.
Well, it is indeed. Lucy, what are your sort of headline thoughts on where we are right now?
Well, I was really struck by Anna's voice note there, where she says there is no joy. And I think for a lot of people, this election, wherever they voted, was very much a response to the fact that people feel that life isn't working, that they work hard, they pay their taxes, but they're not really getting a life back. They're surviving rather than thriving. And that is not being listened to by the political class, that actually the big narrative is this idea that the traditional two-party politics is now pretty much on the way out. Mm-hmm. And why is that? Because voters just feel that they are unheard. The Conservatives
they've been heard today.
They have been heard, but it'll be very interesting to see whether they actually get what they think they're going to get. That's the other proposition at the end of this, that you can't necessarily deliver to everybody, and this will be what will be so interesting for Reform. They're now leading so many more councils, and therefore they will be under much more scrutiny, not just as a party, but how they actually operate in power when they're governing a council or they've got a budget to spend. But then there is this other dimension to it, which you've just read out, the number of councils that are now without full control, or
no overall
control, or out of control, as you might put it, because are these people going to go into work on Monday and have a budget ready, and how long is it going to take them to decide?
But maybe that compromise is actually something that we're perhaps not entirely used to in this country. But of course, at a council level, you have various parties working together in a way that doesn't happen otherwise. Phil, I wonder if you could give me your thoughts on the big picture. What does Starmer do now?
Well, one thing is for sure, I don't believe for a second that he is going to see this as defeat. We've already heard from him today, I'm not going anywhere, I signed up to this, I know what I'm doing. It's all of the nonsense you'd expect to come out of it, because he's not going to give up that easily on a position he's wanted for a very long time.
Let's hear from the Prime Minister himself, actually. He's defiant today.
Let me be clear, these are really tough results. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And we have lost brilliant Labour representatives, people who put so much into their communities, so much into our party and our movement. And the voters have sent a message about the pace of change, how they want their lives improved. May was elected to meet those challenges, and I'm not going to walk away from those challenges and plunge the country into chaos.
It may not be his decision.
But he doesn't get it. He really does. Just listening to the arrogance of him is quite extraordinary.
Is it arrogance or desperation?
No, arrogance, 100%. It's because he's totally and utterly deaf to what he doesn't want to hear. He doesn't understand the reason why people have voted the way they have is because they are fed up to the back teeth of his policies, basically carrying on destroying the country in the same way that you could argue the Tories did a damn good job of destroying the country when they were in power for the last 14 years. And so I think that sort of for as long as you have this political elite who stand by, even with, to some degree, Kemi Badenoch was quite similar today with what she was saying.
Oh, I thought
But what else are they going to say? They're not exactly going to stand up there and say, actually, you know what, it's been a disaster
But come on,
and
Lucy.
I ought to go.
No,
I don't think they would. What you want is someone...
I'll come back to you in a second, but let's have a look at what Kemi Badenoch actually said. I think she's delusional. Let's hear what she's saying.
We need people to know that hope is coming. The Conservatives have to come back because, my goodness, this country needs us. We are coming back to fight for our high streets. We are coming back to fight for hard-working people. We are coming back to fight for businesses. We are coming back to fight for veterans, for parents, for farmers. We're coming back to stamp out anti-Semitic hatred on our streets. Coming back to deliver a stronger economy. We're coming back to deliver a stronger country. And we are coming back to get Britain working again. Thank you, everyone.
Lucy.
OK, I am flying the flag for Kemi. That is exactly the kind of speech you want somebody in her position to be making. She is absolutely aware that this is the beginning rather than the end of something. It is the beginning of something.
This is 488 seats today.
But at the same time, there were these glimmers of hope. Westminster, everybody is going to be talking about.
That's one council.
But it is one council. But you have
they
to start
always do this.
somewhere.
They do this
you
in
have
every.
To start somewhere.
This happens all the time. It happens every single time.
If I
every
was an
single
Olympic
election.
athlete, I would want my coach on every single day that I was feeling down, on every single day that I was feeling like Anna. You had a voice note from a woman who said there is no joy. I want a leader who says, come on, we can do this.
I mean, great,
we
good
can
for her.
do
and
this.
Good for her for being a motivational speaker. Well, hold on, let me say, for being a motivational speaker. But the Conservatives are down 472 seats in England to 647 as we speak.
And it was less bad than everybody anticipated.
Well, that doesn't mean anything. Conservatives down, they've now got half the number of MSPs that they had in Scotland, and in Wales they've lost 22 seats. I mean, it's good for Kemi Badenoch to be a motivational speaker, that's fine, and to gee up the troops and say well done for knocking the doors and all the rest of it. But she and Keir Starmer, just let me finish, she and Keir Starmer are not connected to reality.
Correct.
Politics is very much about the narrative, and it's about the stories that we tell ourselves and each other about our lives and the political situation. And it wasn't that long ago, probably 9 months ago, people were saying, well, I don't think Kemi is going to be around even by conference. Conference is going to be a threat for her. So every day that there is progress is something really important.
I wouldn't say this is progress at all. I think this is.
I think the only slight problem, this is the caveat that everybody would say if they didn't do very well at a local election, is it's only a local election. These were much more important than that. This has seen a seismic shift, and those kind of political tectonic plates have moved. But the way in which she wants to inspire hope, I don't hear Keir Starmer inspiring hope. I certainly don't hear Ed Davey inspiring hope. I don't actually hear Zach Polanski inspiring hope. He's a very negative communicator, I feel.
Well, tell me about that.
Someone else is actually putting...
Tell me about that, actually, from a psychotherapy and psychological point of view.
Yeah.
Because you've got Starmer I think I recognise this behaviour because I had this behaviour myself when I worked in politics. You're in the bunker. It'll actually be fine. It'll all be fine. Everything's actually going to be okay. You know, I remember after the 2019 European election for the Conservatives, when, you know, the Conservatives got 9% of the vote. It was absolutely dreadful, and there were still some people saying, "Oh well, you know, maybe it'll be okay," and it kind of weirdly was, actually, because later that year they won a huge majority, and then suddenly people say, "Well, we were right to be optimistic."
Can you hear yourself that it changes? It was maybe about 3 years ago that Boris Johnson was actively talking about what he would do in his third term of office, and he hadn't even completed his first ones.
Absolutely.
And we have maybe an election in 2029, possibly 2028, I'm not sure. It could even be 2027, but a lot can happen in that time, and it is about the psychology of the stories that you tell, and the story at the moment is that Kemi Badenoch is on the way back.
Yeah, I think what it would have been better, though, with Kemi is if she would have said today, look, that's obviously not the result we hoped. It was more the rhetoric she was using, like, we're coming back. No, you're not coming back. You've actually gone further away. That's what we've learned from today. If you would say we're going to use this as a lesson to say we are going to do everything we can to come back, I think that would have been a slightly more realistic narrative.
Their vote share decline this year, and I'm talking about decline, so I am not sugarcoating it, as someone famously said about 5 minutes ago. It's a better decline than it was last year. So we had a lot of these elections were being rerun from a really high watermark place, and we already knew that. So I suppose it was almost priced in for us that the Conservatives wouldn't do so well.
We're going to talk a lot more about Reform UK in a minute. We've talked about lots of other parties, not really Reform. We're going to have that head on the debate desk from Phil and from Lucy. Lots of comments coming in on this. Brilliant result for Reform, says Simon. They now need to prove themselves. They're now in the spotlight. I think once they start running these councils, they need to regularly publish the findings from their Doge teams as a reminder to the public how the previous parties were running them and why voting for Reform was the right choice, as Simon in Manningtree. Well, I would point out actually that a lot of those councils that are there already, they said they wanted to bring down council tax, for example. It had gone up, but often they're just in a position where that kind of has to happen because of the rising cost of living. Not that I'm defending council tax going up. I'd like mine to go down, which it hasn't in any of the 5.5 years I've been in my residence. Peter in Suffolk says Lucy is as delusional as Starmer and Kemi. That's not very nice, Peter. And another person says, Kemi Badenoch, I would say, so you're coming back, but where did you go? We never went anywhere. It was your party that abandoned its core voters, and that's a part of the story with Reform as well. We'll go to a break now. We'll be back in the debate desk. Lots more analysis from Lucy and Phil, and from you too. I want to hear from you this evening. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Let's talk reform. Phil, Dave.
Yeah, let's talk reform indeed. Look, first of all, I'd say, obviously, I don't think anyone who voted reform can't help but be slightly delighted by the outcome of today. Obviously, it's still important to remember this is local elections. It's not like it's general, so you're not going to see massive changes across the country. You might see it at local level. But I think that sort of a lot of people have said, you know, a lot of people are very quick to put reform down and say, oh, well, you know, they've been talking the good talk. Now let's see how they do when they actually get on with actually running a council. And they are right to say that. It is important to see how they actually get on with running, especially the ones that they've got majority over. But I think it's also important to remember that a lot of local services are very dependent on government as well to sort of make sure that they sort of provide thumbs up and stuff like that for what they can actually get away with doing and providing budgets accordingly. So I believe that it's not all down to reform, regardless, even if they actually sort of do hold overall control of a particular council. But I think as long as people remember that and are not too harsh to say, OK, well, they're just as bad as everyone else, we'll see. But I fear they probably will do.
Lucy, what are your thoughts on the fact that Reform UK have just won another 1,229 councillors in the last 24 hours?
The people have spoken, and the people are saying the current system doesn't work. It's a bit like Brexit. Many people voted for Brexit for a variety of reasons. And back in the day, I think it was David Goodhart described it as the Gavin and Stacey alliance, by which he meant there are people, middle-class people in affluent suburbs, as well as working-class people in forgotten and left-behind communities. And they're all coming together and they're all voting in the same way, but for completely different reasons. So that is really compelling right now. But when it comes to a general election, and you actually have a manifesto, you might start to alienate some of those voters. So it'll be very interesting to see whether what happens right now is actually replicated in 2 or 3 years' time, because some analysis of the votes, which are absolutely phenomenal, really don't want to take it away from them. Nevertheless, it is on a percentage share that is reduced from the local elections last year, where I think Reform got 41%, and now they're on sort of 38. So, you know, have they plateaued? Have they reduced?
And we've seen a number of, we've seen their polling numbers certainly go down, so not a huge surprise that has happened. Certainly in the Gavin and Stacey scenario, I am very much Pam. It's all the drama, Mick. I'm loving it. Phil, I
have no idea what you just said.
Well, you need to watch Gavin and Stacey, which is a superb drama, although not as good as some people think it is. Anyway, Phil, what do you think Reform's big, what's a big one in the kind of inbox for them to try to sort out? They've got 3 years now in a lot of these different areas. They've got control of 10 more councils. I think it's 10 more councils, and they're in a situation where they have a real opportunity to have a record, certainly.
Well, here is what I believe that they could do themselves a massive favour on. If they go back to remembering why local councillors, local politicians actually exist. They are there to make sure that the potholes are fixed in the roads. They are there to make sure that the buses run on time. They're there to make sure that people can just go about their everyday lives and that people can park their cars when they need to. All these different things that they need to be able to get their heads around. The practical everyday things that, sorry, it's 13 councils, I got that wrong, it wasn't 10, it's 13 that Reform have gained, and we still actually have 20 councils to still declare. But you're right, Phil, it is about the day-to-day stuff of people's lives. If they focus on that, I think that they will go an awful long way compared to the others. Who are just sort of trying to inflict their ideology, whether it be green, whether it be goodness knows what else it is.
OK, Phil, we say thank you to you for this section, because we're going to speak to Kai Wilshaw, Welsh Labour activist, in a minute or two, and Lucy is staying with us. Lots more to discuss on the debate desk. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Joe and Peter Cardwell.
It just so happens that it's all you're amazing.
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Graham has been in touch with an absolutely brilliant message. And he asks, quite recently, have the people of Gaza been out on the streets to celebrate Zach Polanski and the seats the Greens have won for them? Maybe they will all be off to their local gay bars tonight to celebrate, says Graham. A very, very interesting one there. Lynn in Cheshire says, I'm fed up listening to Labour and Conservatives talking nonsense. Don't they get the simple, basic fact that they have lied to us over and over again and we've had enough? And Penny in Essex says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Penny. Well, Starmer has got the thrashing he deserves, along with some others. This man who hates his own country and people, in Penny's opinion, who spends his time flying off to other countries like a celebrity, has a Jewish wife and children, but encourages thousands of anti-Semites into this country where anti-Semitism is horrendous, has harmed farmers and pensioners, the worst Prime Minister the UK has ever had, worse than Blair. His one brain cell must be very lonely. Shame on him, says Penny in Essex. Penny, can you just tell us what you really think? I'm just a little bit confused. No, I appreciate your message. I appreciate all the messages that are coming in, and I'm going to get to more of them in a second. I just want to ask Lucy Beresford first, actually, about, before we introduce our next guest, Kai Wilshaw, who's a Welsh Labour activist. Lucy, what do you think about reform and what they might make Labour do? What direction they might move Labour in?
Yes, I think that's one of the other interesting dimensions of the whole picture as it becomes clearer, because Labour are clearly not clear about how they move forward, whether they depose their leader or whether they lurch to the left or swerve to the right. What they need to recognise is that they are definitely losing votes to the Greens in particular, so to, in a way, a left-wing alliance. But it's never about votes, it's always about seats. And the distribution of those votes for the Greens, for example, hasn't actually been very efficient. What we need to pay more attention to is that Reform have been picking up actual seats, and that could actually happen in the general election. And what is very clear is that the Parliamentary Labour Party is hideously out of step with the ordinary Labour voter. 70% of Labour voters are fully behind Shabana Mahmood's immigration policies, whereas Angela Rayner felt that they were un-British.
Let's talk to someone who's been on the doorsteps in Wales for many weeks. Kai Wilshaw's with us. Hi, Kai, a Welsh Labour activist. You must be very disappointed with the results in Wales.
Yeah, you have to pick your metaphor, don't you, with the election results in Wales. Is it a tidal wave? Is it, you know, an earthquake? All those apply, because since the extension of the franchise, Welsh Labour has been in power, has gained over 20% of the vote. That's since, what, 1920?
So what's happened now? Tell us from the ground up what has happened now. You've been knocking those doors. What have people been saying to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think there's a double incumbency factor, isn't there? So both people say, I don't like that Keir Starmer. I don't feel he's changed things. I voted for him, promising change. I don't feel that. But secondly, the incumbency of Welsh Labour in the Senedd. The Welsh Labour have been in government in Cardiff Bay since 1999. And so if you feel that things aren't changing and you have the Labour Party to blame in both capitals, then that's really come across to me quite a bit. But that was the case as well between 1999 and 2010. So why is that a bigger factor now, do you think? Is it just the length of time? Is it Starmer himself? What were people saying to you? Did they mention Starmer on the doorstep? Yes.
And what did they say?
Absolutely. It's incredible to me, Peter, and I went and campaigned in Gordon and Denton as well. I've been around the hatred that Keir Starmer inspires. And that's shocking to me, because I see him as a sort of technocratic, fairly anodyne politician. That's not how lots of people feel. It's not just disappointment at him, it's quite visceral.
Yeah.
Whereas towards the Labour Party generally, I was getting a lot of disappointment, but not anger. So it's more about that people aren't turning up to vote for Labour or are lending their vote to somebody they feel is credible. And in Wales in particular, they have good alternatives that they can bank on.
Speaking of those alternatives, actually, we've seen the Green Party pick up 2 seats. Clearly, the Greens have not made much of an impression. The Conservatives down 22. We'll maybe talk a bit about reform in a second. But Plaid Cymru winning 20 more seats.
Yeah.
Do you think that is simply because they're seen as the alternative to Labour?
Yes, absolutely. What people forget, and underpriced in Wales, is we have a sort of soft left, if you like, a left-wing party that, differently to the Greens, has governed in Wales. It's been a coalition partner for the Labour Party. It's birthed many of the great giants of Welsh politics. Many of those are still around. David Wigley, David Ale Thomas, for instance. But also, the fact is, they've been around. People have given their vote to them before. They're a known quantity, differently to, say, the Greens, who, as we know nationally, comments by Zach Polanski in the last week have affected them perhaps at the poll, or at least his approval rating. In Plaid Cymru you don't have that, but also you do have a charismatic leader who is seen as wanting the best for Wales. And I think everybody who voted Reform and voted Green see both those parties as going out to bat for Wales in a way that Welsh Labour just haven't.
Tell me about Reform UK. Why have they picked up 34 seats in your estimation, especially... So there must have been many, many switchers from Labour to Reform, and there's this very lazy narrative that Reform only pick up seats from the Conservatives and votes from the Conservatives. There must have been many Labour people some who went to Plaid Cymru, some who went to Reform UK.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'd compare it to is somewhere like Wigan, right, where you saw the right-wing bloc overall increase drastically because people are leaving Labour and going to Reform. You see that quite a bit in Wales. Lots of the Welsh heartlands have voted Labour all their lives, but actually for many of the same reasons, even though immigration hasn't been as big an issue in the Welsh election campaign compared to nationally, they want something different. They want a party that feels proud of their nationhood, proud of their identity, and they see that in Reform. There are proud people, lots of these sort of working class groups in the valleys, but also, as you say, you've got all sorts of different groups formerly industrial heartlands in the north of Wales, where Reform performed better than lots of the polling suggested. And then, of course, in some of the conservative heartlands, places like Pembrokeshire, places like Monmouthshire, they picked up from the right there too.
Lucy, what's your impression, not just of Wales, but the national picture as well, especially when it comes to people leaving Labour and the reasons they're doing that?
Well, I think we have to recognise that the 2024 result was as much a vote against the Conservatives as it was a vote for Labour. A lot of people lent their votes to Labour, and above all, they did that because of what Kai has been talking about, this real longing for change, this idea that the world isn't working for me as an individual, and it could have been because of the pandemic, it could have been because of Brexit or the cost of living crisis, but above all, I don't feel listened to. And that is a story that has been around for 10 years. It is 10 years since the Brexit vote, and a lot of people voted the way they did because they didn't feel heard. The problem is that Keir Starmer said, I'm going to be completely different. I am going to be the man to change things. I'm not going to be like those awful Tories. And there was a real caricature of the fact that Tories don't listen to you, Tories are just in it for themselves, and we won't be like that, which was why the revelation about the glasses and the clothing that came out so quickly was so devastating. But unfortunately, I think above all, it was the U-turns, particularly the first one around welfare.
Yes.
People want to feel safe. Voters want to feel safe. They want to believe that they can trust leaders.
Does that chime with you, Kai?
Yes. What I really pick up on there is that promise of change. In Wales, it hurts particularly because so much of the narrative, for many years, by the way, from the Welsh Labour Party has been, when you have the Labour Party in power on both sides of the M4, then you'll see real change, then you'll see funding, then you'll see more devolution. None of that materialised. And I think there was a feeling in Welsh Labour, ever since Keir Starmer came to power, surely they can give us something, whether it's talking about devolving justice and policing, whether it's talking about the Crown estate.
But surely they've got to take, responsibility for what they are running themselves. The NHS, for example, in Wales has been really bad in the last number of years. So it's their own record as well. It's not just, the thing that drives me completely mad about devolution, especially in Northern Ireland, is London must do more for us. Why can't you do what you have, do as much as you can with what you have?
No, I totally agree with you. It's not all to do with that, but I think that question of promises of change that never materialise really echoes with what's happened in Wales. But certainly what you're going to see now is exactly that debate play out. Westminster and the Parliamentary Labour Party, the Parliamentary Welsh Labour Party, arguing with their colleagues or former colleagues in the Senedd about what went wrong. Frankly, based on previous experience, I don't have any faith that the Welsh Labour Party, currently constituted, is going to come to a sensible conclusion about why they got to the scale of these losses, and the recriminations and blame will fly. It's going to be awful.
Kai, thank you very much indeed. That is Kai Wilshaw, Welsh Labour activist. Appreciate you coming in. Lucy Beresford, the psychotherapist, author and political commentator. Really appreciate you being with us this evening. Loads more to discuss over the next couple of hours. What do you think of Wales, of Scotland, of the local councils in England? What do you want Reform UK to do now? What do you think about Polanski's comment that two-party politics is over? Is it over for the Uni Party? Is this a watershed? I think it is. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. There's so much happening this evening. The results are still coming in. 116 of 136 councils in London, in the UK are in England, more accurately. 136 councils in England, apologies. Reform UK, 1,300 councillors or thereabout. It's updating all the time. Labour are down over 1,000. They have about 800. The Lib Dems are up 93 at 724. The Conservatives, bad night for them, down nearly 500 councillors councillors, and the Greens have nearly doubled, in fact more than doubled, the numbers that they were on. So there's quite a lot happening, certainly. Rupert Lowe's party in Great Yarmouth, 10 councillors there, a small victory for them. We'll talk about all aspects of this, including the absolute collapse of Labour in Wales, the fact that the SNP have held on in Scotland. That's an interesting thought in all of this as well. So much to discuss. I want to get as many calls, text, tweets and voice notes on the air as we can. The numbers 0344 499 1000 is the main number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note, you can send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. We're on until 10, usually 9 on a Friday, but 10 o'clock tonight because of the local elections. If you want to watch what just happened, you can see it online, of course, or indeed over the weekend output here on Talk. So much to discuss. Give me a shout, 0344 499 1000. Let's get going here on Talk. Daryl's been in touch and says, all well and good with Kemi, but what other Tories speak similar, wearing the old school wet still lurking? Well, let's hear what Kemi Badenoch said. In fact, she is the leader of the Conservative Party. According to her, everything's fine, even though she's lost 475 councillors in England. In Scotland, she's gone from 16 members of the Scottish Parliament to 9, and in Wales they've gone from let me work this out, 29 down to 7. So a bad night for the Conservatives, but she says they're on the way back. This is what Kemi Badenoch says.
We need people to know that hope is coming. The Conservatives have to come back because, my goodness, this country needs us. We are coming back to fight for our high streets. We are coming back to fight for hard-working people. We are coming back to fight for businesses. We are coming back to fight for veterans, for parents, for farmers. We're coming back to stamp out anti-Semitic hatred on our streets. Coming back to deliver a stronger economy. We're coming back to deliver a stronger country. And we are coming back to get Britain working again. Thank you.
A bullish Kemi Badenoch. Well, no man happier in the country today than Nigel Farage. This is what he's been saying.
But I think overall what's happened is a truly historic shift in British politics. We've been so used to thinking about politics in terms of left and right. And yet what Reform are able to do is to win in areas that have always been conservative, but equally, we're proving in a big way, we can win in areas that Labour have dominated, frankly, since the end of World War I.
Really interesting views from Farage there. We'll probe them in a second with the political editor of The Independent. But another interesting thought, proving that a stop clock tells the right time twice a day, with Zach Polanski saying that the period of two-party government and two-party politics in this country is definitely over. This is what he's been saying.
Two-party politics is not just dying, it is dead and it is buried. And actually, whether it's here that Labour have been rejected or whether we're seeing around the country, it's very clear that the new politics is the Green Party versus Reform. I said that the Green Party were going to replace Labour. That's exactly what we did in Gorton and Denton. It's what we've done in Hackney, and we're seeing that right across the country.
Lots to discuss, and David Maddox joins me now, political editor of The Independent. David, what a seismic day here in England, of course, but also in Scotland and Wales too. Let's take them one by one. Tell me your thoughts on what's happened in England.
I mean, it's absolutely stunning, Peter. I have to say, you know, my feeling today is that this is more of a reaction against Keir Starmer's government and the Labour Party than it is kind of sudden falling in love with Nigel Farage and Reform and the Greens and Zach Polanski. In fact, Reform are a little bit down from last year's results, strangely enough. I mean, they've made sweeping gains. Of course, it's been a tremendous set of results for them. But I think what we're seeing here is, and it kind of touches on what Zach Polanski was saying, is disillusionment with the old parties. And, you know, there is very little love for Labour and the Tories out there. And those people who are voting are going to different parties. I mean, I have to say, I did laugh at Zach Polanski's comment because he said the two-party system's dead, which I don't disagree with, actually. But then suggested that there's actually a new two-party system with Reform and the Greens, which
I mean, we're just not there in any sense, are we? We're really not there in any sense, and certainly not with the Green Party. Well, maybe you can assess. Actually, we haven't talked a lot about the Green Party. They'll be very happy as we speak right now. They're up 293 councillors in England. With the total at the moment I have on the screen in front of me is 412. So I mean, they've had a good night.
Yes, but actually probably not as strong as they may have hoped. I think they were looking at 500 plus gains. They've certainly done well. They've got 2 mayoralties. They've gained Waltham Forest, I think. They've run Labour quite close in Islington and Camden. Camden, of course, being Keir Starmer's backyard. So they've certainly made gains. They are now properly in the conversation as such as a serious party, which they weren't before. I think, they were always a fringe party before. But I think certain aspects of what they believe in and what they've been saying, it kind of caught up with them just before the election and maybe prevented even bigger gains than we might have expected.
I should say the Greens are at 438, Labour 865. You can see that on the screen in front of you there. 717, I should say, for the Conservatives. Lib Dems 805 and Reform 1,356. 865 for Labour, I should say. 1,356 for Reform UK. I mean, they've just had an astonishing evening, Reform UK, haven't they? Keir Starmer must be quaking in his boots at Nigel Farage.
I mean, they've won everywhere. They've destroyed the Tories in their old heartlands. I mean, I talk as a boy who grew up in Norfolk, and my old county has largely gone Reform. You look at Essex, where they've got 6 of the shadow cabinet members. That's pretty much been wiped out by Reform. But they've also kind of taken places like Barnsley and taking most of the seats in Angela Rayner's backyard in Tameside, and taking seats off Labour in Leeds. They've wiped out the red wall as well. And of course, probably the most spectacular results have been in Wales, where of course Plaid won, but Reform have come from 0 to being the official opposition there.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Wales has been absolutely fascinating. A number of our viewers and listeners are saying they're disappointed with Reform, but I don't think Reform will see that as a disappointing result at all. They're the second largest party, and they will have a lot of sway, especially when it is a minority administration. So far, for Plaid, we'll see what they end up doing and whether they build a coalition or what happens there.
I don't think Reform could have done much better in Wales. I think they've pretty much topped out on what they could have hoped for, and they've come from 0 seat. Well, they did have 1 defector, but they've come effectively from 0 seats at the last election to 34, I think it is.
They're on 34. That's
not far behind Plaid as well. And you look what's happened to Labour there. It's they're down to 9 seats. They've literally run Wales since devolution in 1999. They've been the winning party in Wales for more than a century. Literally, the Labour Party was created in Wales. Keir Hardie, the other Keir,
yes,
was a Merthyr Tydfil MP. It's the kind of homeland of the modern Labour Party, and they've been destroyed there. And a lot of that really is Reform.
Yeah, it's fascinating, actually. I mean, Labour losing 35 seats there. Of course, the number of seats and the electoral system has changed as well. What do you make of Scotland? I mean, the Scottish National Party doing really, really well. They haven't declared all the seats, just 91 so far, but they look as if they may well be heading for a majority, just down just 5 seats. And given all the scandals that have been in the last few years for the SNP, they must be very happy with that so far.
I think the SNP must consider themselves to be the luckiest party in British politics, actually, when you think that what they went through. The chief executive of their party is literally on trial. They lost 2 leaders over various scandals, and it's somehow they're still emerging as the winner. But of course, it's because Labour are in such a dreadful state. I get back to my original point that this is not elections positive votes for Reform or the SNP or even Plaid, in Wales. It's not positive. It's because people are so angry with Labour, and actually before that was so angry with the Tories. I mean, clearly they haven't forgiven the Tories either.
Yeah, speaking of Starmer himself, actually, he's under a huge amount of pressure, obviously. And what are the sort of soundings that you're picking up from your political contacts today? Despair? Will that despair perhaps go into action, David?
Well, this is going to be the kind of $1 million question over the weekend, I think. I mean, it was interesting for most of the day. There was just this stunned silence coming from Labour MPs and ministers. And then, of course, the left of the party started saying for a timetable for Keir to go, along with trade union leaders, Unite and Unison, amongst others. But, then there's been this evening, there's been this coordinated attempt to get ministers to put out messages to say he must stay, but, he's going nowhere. But in doing that, I think Downing Street have inadvertently kind of exposed the Prime Minister's weakness, because it's just noticeable which ministers have not said anything as of yet. I mean, they may do.
Yeah, I mean, so far we're monitoring that too, actually.
Yeah. Word Streeting, nothing. Yeah. Banner Mahmood, nothing. Yvette Cooper, nothing. Ed
Miliband as well, nothing there. So, I mean, those are really people who have some serious thoughts about the future of the Labour Party and the Prime Minister of this country.
And Sadiq Khan's just put out a statement that was as long as War and Peace, and didn't have a single endorsement of Keir Starmer in it.
Yeah. I mean, if we printed out the statement, it would probably be taller than he is.
Angela Rayner, again, silence. These are all people who have, with the exception of Sadiq Khan perhaps, but all people who have their eye potentially on the leadership of the Labour Party. And, they are not coming out in support.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very perilous weekend for the Prime Minister.
And what about I mean, I don't want to get too Byzantine about how it all happens or how it may happen, but the Burnham factor here is a big one, because he has been saying, he might come back, there might be an MP who stands down in the Northwest. But as we've seen in the Northwest, you can't just say the Northwest is a Labour heartland anymore, because we have seen these results. And there are many parts of the Northwest where Labour has just not come through. In fact, they've been roundly defeated in many, many parts.
Well, if this was a wholesale rejection, these election results were a wholesale rejection of Keir Starmer, you have to say they're also a wholesale rejection of at least two of the people who hope to replace him. The Northwest Labour got absolutely battered. And I see no way Andy Burnham could come back, actually. But, even if somebody were to stand aside to let him run for Parliament, I just don't see how he could win a seat. And it wasn't exactly a massive endorsement of what he's doing in the Northwest, these results. And then you look at Angela Rayner, again in the Northwest, the Tameside Council, which covers her constituency. And, Reform won 16 out of the 17 seats available in that council. Again, she's in desperate trouble. And, these are not endorsements of their leadership hopes.
Okay. David, thank you. That's David Mallox there, political editor of The Independent. Lots to discuss in all of this. Thanks to Sean in Bradwell. He is a Reform member. He says, I'd like to congratulate Rupert Lowe, not considering he was elected on a Reform UK platform. Thanks to him splitting the vote, Reform hasn't won total control of the Norfolk County. So cheers to your selfish needs, says Sean. Scott in Portsmouth says, Labour are backed into a corner now. Starmer won't resign. If he stays, the public vote will strengthen against Labour. If Miliband were to take over his net zero policy, it'll push the public further away. They're damned if they do or don't. The whole situation is playing to Reform. Nigel needs to capitalise. Change is afoot. Great show, Peter, says Scott. Thank you. Really interesting message there. And Justin's been in touch and says, can you get on the guy from Kirkcaldy? Mark and I think you said what he said, Scotland is on the money and why I left the country for the USA. Justin from Edinburgh originally, now in Kansas City, Missouri. So thank you for watching or listening from there. Leslie says, Reform have taken Sunderland. Sunderland is a huge Brexit area. Will tone-deaf Starmer still go ahead with EU realignment? Many more of your comments, text, tweets and voice notes coming your way. We'll take some calls next here on Talk. You want to get your call in? You want to get on the air? You want to express your view on this incredibly important day for our nation? 0344 499 1000.
Peter Cardwell.
It just so happens that it's all you're amazing.
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Andrea's in Manchester and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Andrea, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi, good evening, Peter. I spoke to you before. I'm Oliver the cat's mum, if you remember that.
Yeah, great to chat to you again.
He's doing great, thank you.
Good.
Just a quick one. I actually saw the kind of press conference Starmer did, and I thought, is he deluded? Is he stupid? Or is he just plain arrogant? And
What do you think?
I think he's just plain arrogant. I mean, it's kind of like, does he not read the room? It's just everyone I've spoken to, friends, and, we all vote for different parties and so on, but we're kind of all unified in the same kind of view that Starmer really does need to go. And he needs to go quickly because Labour...
Who do you think should replace him, Andrea? Because there are many candidates, of course, there are always candidates to be Prime Minister, but is there a Labour leader who you would actually say could do a better job?
Do you know what? To be honest, being a Mancunian, I would say Andy Burnham.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'd vote for, Labour or whatever, because I just think I think with Labour, and same with the Tories, I think there's a massive assumption that, if you're a Labour voter or if your family have voted Labour for sort of years and years or whatever, there's this massive sort of assumption that, we'll just vote Labour anyway. So when I was at university, I lived in central Manchester, and nobody ever saw the Labour MP. He always got in, but nobody ever saw him.
Right.
And I think that kind of, those assumptions, particularly around sort of working class communities, I think that's really changed. And I think now they're kind of thinking, not Starmer, but I think a lot of the MPs and councillors are kind of thinking, oh, crikey, what's happening? Rather than that kind of, if you stick a rosette on an orange or something, people will vote for it.
But that has changed so much, hasn't it, Andrea? We're in a different political paradigm now, aren't we?
Absolutely, and it's great that it has changed. But for me, I would say Starmer definitely needs to go. He's not going to. He's going to have to go kicking and screaming, I think, to be honest.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say Burnham. And I think that Starmer, again, cut his nose to spite his face when he kind of wouldn't let Burnham stand for, Gorton and Denton. Look what happened there. Hannah got in.
Yeah, Hannah Spencer, indeed.
And at the moment, to be honest, I was looking at the results today, but, kind of the Greens are getting in and Reform are getting in and Labour kind of getting shoved to, and sometimes the Lib Dems, and they're getting shoved right to the kind of the bottom of the kind of ballot box. And to be honest, I think they deserve it.
Okay.
I think, they've kind of assumed that the electorate, to be honest, are kind of lemmings and, for too long now. And also, they've been in power for, a significant period of time and there's no change. If anything, everything's getting worse.
Okay.
Sorry, Peter, I'm waffling.
No, you're not waffling at all, Andrea. You've made some superb points and thank you for them. That's Andrea in Manchester. Give me a ring anytime, Andrea. You talk a lot of common sense. You definitely do not waffle. Mark's in Lincolnshire and has some thoughts on Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. They've won 10 councillors in that area. Mark, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, good evening, Peter.
Good evening.
Hiya. Very happy. I'm pleased for Reform as well. They've had a good day. but they didn't have any competition. Won't be the same next time round. We'll see what happens then. If it's anything like Great Yarmouth...
There's a lot of competition, Mark. There's competition from many, many other parties.
No, they didn't. Nobody's going to vote Tory. Nobody's voting Labour. Nobody's voting any of those guys.
Millions of people voted Tory. Millions of people voted Labour. They absolutely had opponents, and Restore Britain, which is the party you support, Mark, from memory, could have easily stood against them if they had wanted to. They've won 10 seats, and good for them for doing so. But for example, the Residents Association won 27 seats. Independents and others won 134 seats. Well done to Restore Britain, but that is a very, very small victory for them.
Yeah, it is a very important one, though. It proves a point. It proves what Rupert set out to do. It's a 2-month-old party, registered for about a month. They were only ever going to stand in one place. He was sensible to do what he did. If he was trying to stand in multiple different areas within, from a month of being a registered party, what do you think would have happened, Peter? It would have been an absolute disaster. And you know that. Reform know that, which is why they wanted them to do it, obviously. The point was, what Rupert had set out to do was a test case. Can you beat Reform from the right? And the reality is, Peter, and I heard Shawnee Boy crying about Norfolk. Wah, 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 bah, bah, bah. Deal with this, yeah?
Reform UK have won Mark, Reform UK have won another 1,365 additional council seats today. Do you honestly think they're quaking in their boots about 10 councillors being won in a small geographical area?
Why are Reform people crying about it? If it's so insignificant to them, why are they crying about it?
There are people in the area who are upset about it, but nationally, do you honestly think Nigel Farage is sitting there with 1,365 new elected councillors? He's honestly sitting there worrying about Rupert Lowe?
Yes, I genuinely believe he is.
I think that's completely delusional.
Before this, Peter, he sat there to the press and said, "Oh, they won't even get 1%, even in Great Yarmouth at these elections." Well, they got more than 1%, didn't they? Because what Rupert set out
in a small geographical area, and good for them for doing so. They are not a national party. They are not a national threat, and they're not a threat to Reform UK.
If you let me finish, Peter, he set out to prove one thing: can you beat Reform from the right? And he didn't just beat Reform from the right; he battered Reform from the right.
In 10 council seats, you're talking about 5,000 or 6,000 votes.
When the next elections start coming up in a year, whenever the next council ones come up, they will probably be standing in those ones, and then we'll see what actually really does happen, won't we? Because I've got a funny feeling, Peter, Reform are about to have the bubble burst right from under their backside. And
we will see what happens, Mark. We will see what happens. I think you will be wrong, but we will see what happens. And thank you for your comments. Lenny's in Ashford and has some thoughts on what's going on today. Lenny, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening.
Well, I'm a little bit disappointed that the Conservatives have done so bad. Although, I haven't voted Conservative for many, many years. But it's going to make Kemi's job so much more difficult, challenging Starmer at the dispatch box, because she is in the same position as him.
Do you think she's in the same position as him? She didn't sound that way today. She doesn't seem to think that she's done badly at all. In fact, she says they're starting a comeback. I mean, I think she's delusional, having lost 490 councillors or thereabouts. In terms of councils, they've lost 9 councils as well. I don't think she's any reason to be optimistic, but she hasn't done as badly as Starmer, has she? I mean, he has lost, 1,280 seats in England?
Yeah. You are totally correct, but Kemi was there, surrounded by Conservative supporters, and everything she said, and she'd done that speech. No one could have done it better to try and drum up enthusiasm for the Conservatives. No one could have done that speech better.
Okay.
But reality is, the amount of seats they've lost.
Yeah. Okay. Lenny, listen, thanks for your call and your thoughts there. I appreciate that. Amanda in London says, Starmer, like all narcissists, feels no shame or humility and doesn't have the dignity to resign. Well, we'll see what happens. Leslie says, if Labour has done so badly in a general election, then a general election should be called. Starmer is hopeless and there's no one in the Labour Party suitable to lead the country. Paula says, I'm so happy with the results today. I want to see Reform UK put the British people first. Immigration is obviously a big issue that needs to be addressed. Education in this country needs an overhaul. We definitely need to bring back technical colleges. The NHS needs a shake-up. Housing, almost every aspect. Let's hope the Reform councillors can make a difference. Otherwise, they don't have a cat in hell's chance of winning the next election. Claire says nothing will change. In a week, Starmer will be standing strong. He has the balls to work through the Mandelson troubles. This will be nothing. The country has spoken. Change is needed urgently. People have had enough. Our local Labour MP put out a statement saying Starmer is brilliant. I mean, read the room, says Claire. And Keith in Nottingham before the break says Kemi thinks the Tories are on the way back. She will only be back if she can keep the Remainers quiet on the back benches. If she can't, I'm afraid the only place she will be going back to is on the line in McDonald's. Kind regards, says Keith in Nottingham. Well, thank you for that. Keep your messages coming in, keep your calls coming in. We're going to speak to a Reform MP next. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Andrew Rossendale is the Reform MP for Romford and joins us now. Andrew, a very good day for Reform UK. You must be delighted.
Yes, good evening, Peter. Thrilled for Reform UK that we have absolutely made a huge impact across the country today, the local elections. My own borough, first borough in London to go Reform UK. wiped out the Conservatives completely, not a single Conservative councillor, and in my constituency, not a single Labour councillor either. So I think the mood in this country for change is very real.
When you see what Kemi Badenoch is saying today, she struck a very upbeat note and says the Conservatives are on the way back. What would you say to her as your former party colleague?
Look, the Conservatives, I'm afraid, have never been the same, really, since Mrs Thatcher went. They've been on the decline, really. Even when we've won elections, we've failed to really do what the British people wanted us to do. We've always veered to the centre rather than more to the right, which I think the mood of the country is, and that's why. I mean,
the Conservative Party won a majority in 2015 and in 2019, a big majority in 2019. You can't just say that they haven't resonated with the public on those occasions.
Well, I'm afraid, Peter, you've hit the nail on the head. In 2015, the Conservatives won the election on a clear mandate to repeal the Human Rights Act, if you remember that, and also have a referendum on the European Union. Now, we bodged both, didn't we? If you remember, we didn't really follow through Brexit fully, as we should have done, and the Human Rights Act remains in place. The problem is that the Conservative Party always promises things it doesn't actually do when in office. And immigration is the biggest failure of the last government, promising to control immigration, but never doing so. And that's why we've lost our core vote. That's why people in this country now want something different. And that's why they're voting for Reform UK.
What is on day one? What is the Monday morning, these councillors getting involved, getting their seals of office and getting their offices sorted out? And what is the task, the number one task on a council level? Because you speak about immigration, that's obviously something that affects councils, but it's not really an area that they can do very much about. Maybe you disagree with that, maybe that's wrong. But it's interesting that local councils, I mean, you have had some of them for the last couple of years, they've said things like they want to reduce council tax, but they haven't been able to do that.
So local government in this country is broken in many ways because so much of the funding that local government spends goes on only a small number of areas, such as special educational needs and adult social care. And the bulk of the money that people think they're spending on local services is not being spent on those things. So that's why we see potholes, we see libraries being closed, as we've had in my own borough. We see parks not being looked after. There's a lot of problems with local government. The money isn't there to spend on the amenities that years ago we were able to do. So reform of local government is vital, and that can't be done fully until there's a Reform UK government. But locally, councillors can make a difference. What they can do is to go through public expenditure of the local council with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that every penny councils spend are spent wisely and effectively, and money is not wasted on unnecessary contracts, on staff that are not needed, on projects that are vanity projects and don't actually benefit the people of the borough. And I think we need to run local councils in a business-like way. And I think Reform UK councillors will be doing that because most councils are now in debt. We can't afford to waste money anymore. We have to use money in the wisest way possible.
I take absolutely nothing away from the 34 people who are now elected members of the Welsh Assembly, and well done to them. But is it disappointing to you, nonetheless, that in Wales Reform UK is not in government? Because that is something which was at one stage anyway a target for your party, albeit from a very low base, one defector, and they've got now 34 members of the Welsh Assembly elected in their own right.
Well, the electoral system in Wales is very difficult for Reform UK to win an election in that situation. So, they've adopted a very strange electoral system, but also increased the number of members of the Welsh Assembly. Of all things, creating more politicians is the last thing we need, and that's what they've done in Wales. The Welsh Government haven't a proud record, particularly on the National Health Service. If Reform UK are not running Wales, then that's a shame, but that's the way the system works at the moment. I personally think we need less government, we need less mayors and assemblies and councillors. We actually need less politicians.
How would you do that? Where would you cut, Andrew?
Well, as you probably know, Peter, I've never been very keen on having a mayor of London. That's always been an unnecessary.
Would you get rid of the Welsh Assembly? Would you get rid of the Scottish Parliament?
Look, they've had referendum and they've created Welsh Assembly in the Scottish Parliament. So you couldn't do that unless the people of Wales and Scotland wanted to change. But for instance, my own borough, we were put into Greater London in the 1960s. We were never asked if we wanted to be in Greater London. Mrs. Thatcher got rid of the GLC. That saved a lot of money. But unfortunately, Tony Blair recreated the whole circus in 2000.
So you don't think London needs a mayor, even though, will Leila Cunningham, who's running to be mayor of London for your party, be happy with you saying that?
Leila Cunningham will be a superb mayor, and for as long as we have a mayor of London, then we need someone like Leila Cunningham in charge.
If she became mayor of London, would she then abolish herself?
Well, that's up to Leila. I've always argued that we need less government. I agree with what Margaret Thatcher did in getting rid of the GLC. I don't think it was a layer of government that we needed. Yes, we need cooperation between councils across London and across different parts of the country where it's sensible to do so, whether it's on transport or policing, whatever it may be. What we don't need is a huge layer of bureaucracy in City Hall, which is what we've got under Sadiq Khan. But, I look forward to Leila becoming mayor because I know that, like me, she believes that power should rest with local communities and local boroughs first and foremost.
I think it's a very big ask for Leila Cunningham to become mayor of London, but nonetheless, I appreciate your optimism. Tell me your thoughts on a few other parties. What should Starmer do now?
Well, I hope he resigns because he's the worst Prime Minister I can ever remember. I don't suppose he will. He'll try and cling on to office. And sadly, Peter, we've got another 3 years of this terrible government. We can't insist on a general election until I think latest is August of 2029. It's a horrific thought that we're going to have this government in place for so much longer. But Labour are a catastrophic government in power at the moment. And I think the results of these local elections, only 18 months or 20 months into this parliament, shows that the people have already made up their minds about Keir Starmer and they want him gone.
Yeah, it's very interesting from that perspective, certainly. When you look at the Green Party as well, Zach Polansky, I expect you would agree with him when he says the era of two-party politics or two-and-a-bit party politics is over to some degree. How does Reform UK capitalise on that, especially now? You talked about the difficulties of the voting system in Wales. It would be a stunning victory, and it would be a huge talking about political earthquakes today, it would be really huge if Reform UK became a majority government. The likelihood with these numbers anyway would appear to suggest that Reform UK would become a minority government in a national election. It's very hard. We're comparing apples and oranges and 3 years away and all the rest of it. I don't want to get too much into all of that. But, when you see Reform UK's poll numbers stabilising, when you see the fact they've done very, very well, take nothing away from that, but they've gone down from about a 41% vote share to about 38% vote share, the small numbers within the margin of error, I get that, but nonetheless, the mountain in front of them is a big one, is it not, to win a majority at the next election, realistically?
I think the mountain in front of any party to win a majority in the next election is huge, but I don't think you should fixate too much on the vote share being slightly down. It depends on which parts of the country are being
that's a fair point.
elected. You've got Greater London. Obviously, that's an area which is predominantly to the left, and so I don't think you can really draw much of a conclusion on that matter. But I think the mood of the country is for something different, and come a general election, people will vote for something which is stronger and better for the country, and they have lost faith in the Conservatives. That's very clear. Surely, after 2 years of a Labour government, you think the Conservatives would be storming it, but they're not. They're losing seats. They've been wiped out in my constituency. They had 20 councillors last time in Romford. They now have 0. Mm-hmm. So that does show how people are thinking about.
What's that like? What's that like for you personally, Andrew? Because some of those people will have been your friends or maybe former friends. I don't know. I know you're in a dispute with some of the local party in some regards. I don't want to get into that too much. But is there an emotional aspect of you today, seeing people who you've worked with previously, people who've maybe been good councillors? You obviously disagree with them politically, but in your area, you know, you were working for them to lose their jobs, and that's what happened.
Well, it is more complicated than that. A lot, of course, quite a few of the local councillors and candidates and members have joined Reform UK, have followed me. You know, the vast number have actually come over with me, and certainly the voters have, as you can see by the results. There were some councillors that are of Reform UK opinion, but they didn't want to join Reform UK because they felt they should stay with the Conservative Party. Sadly, they lost, which is a shame, because I did try to persuade them to join Reform UK. But I think we all knew that the Conservative Party really let the country down very badly. You know, 14 years and 5 prime ministers. And I was there watching it. And at the end of it, really looking back, what did we achieve? You know, very little, I'm afraid. And people are extremely disappointed. And I think that Reform UK actually offers a real alternative, a right of centre alternative, and a Prime Minister in Nigel Farage, who actually loves this country and believes in Britain, will stand up for this country and will do what's necessary to put this country in a better place. The problem with the Conservatives is that they say a lot of good things, but when they're in power, don't do them. And that's why people are now absolutely disillusioned, and they're mostly coming over to Reform UK.
Andrew, thank you. That's Andrew Rossendale there. He is the Reform UK MP for Romford. We'll hear from Nigel Farage, who is in Chelmsford very, very shortly. Let me just read out a couple of messages. First, Eileen says, in Glasgow, how can that lady suggest that politics is about a story and a narrative? I would accept that. Politics should be raw and representative of what's going on. The story doesn't work anymore. It's time for politics that does work. Nigel says around 10% more people have voted in the local elections than normally vote in local elections. This time it matters to the people. Thank you to Robin Darby, who says, I just want to say I've watched you for years. You found your presenting niche. Thank you, appreciate that. Dawn in Chelmsford says, Kemi Badenoch's view mirrors the football manager whose side lost 6-0. They always say, I have seen a lot of positives. Alex in Cardiff says, I'm on Lucy Beresford's side with Kemi, and as we saw with Polanski in last week's poll, he's got destroyed. Reform have so many extra councillors, there will be sleaze with some, but I still think Kemi can win the 2029 election. I also think someone with your knowledge of politics and education thinking I'm being hopeful and you're being realistic. Well, listen, I think if the Conservatives win the next election, I will be very, very surprised, but we will see where we are. And Alex, thank you for that. Elaine says, spare a thought and send prayers and help to Scotland. We're now a complete basket case. Samantha says, I haven't heard Labour MPs talking about breakfast clubs today. I have heard Labour MPs say that their communications isn't great, telling the public about all the good things Labour have done. I don't think they understand that people don't want change quicker. The people don't want Labour's change at all. Samantha, very, very good point. I was once talking about a politician with someone and said they don't have a communications problem. They are like the Titanic. The Titanic didn't have a communications problem, like the Titanic had an iceberg problem, and I think Labour may well still be in the same position. I know we're hoping to hear from Nigel Farage very soon. Are we close to that? Can we take him now? Nigel Farage is speaking in Chelmsford. Here we go.
One of the few people in politics who'd be even better for the bar profits than me. How about that? Oh, it's not been recorded, is it? Oh dear, never mind. It's a bit late to worry, really, isn't it? In the 8 seats that were contested in Rayner's constituency, Reform won 7 of them, averaging over 40% of the vote. And in St Helens, where I've come directly here from, St Helens in Merseyside. And by the way, these are red wall areas. They're red wall areas that even Boris Johnson, in the 2019 referendum, could never get close to. We have absolutely stormed it in St Helens, with the Labour Party being reduced down to just 2 seats. These are historic results. And in ward after ward, we see Labour down 35%, Reform up 37%. We are directly taking votes from patriotic old Labour in areas that, frankly, they've been pretty much able to take for granted since the end of World War I. And the same goes for the Rhondda and Merthyr and many areas like that. And increasingly, the results aren't in parts of Scotland too. But all of that is as nothing compared to Yorkshire. And what is happening in Yorkshire is remarkable. In Wakefield, of the 63 seats, Wakefield, Labour, rock solid Labour. In Wakefield of 63 seats, we've just won 58. In Barnsley, but I love their accent. The Barnsley accent's amazing. Barnsley, rock solid Labour forever. We've walked it with a massive majority. We're on the verge of winning Calderdale. We're on the verge of winning Kirklees. And with half the votes counted and the other half tomorrow, we're in with a shout, and I can't believe this, we're in with a shout of winning overall control in Bradford. It is truly extraordinary. By the way, you've probably never ever seen me ever read off notes in my entire career. But you know what? After 2 days, after 9 weeks on the road, 2 days of doing this, and after 2 days, after 9 weeks on the road, 2 days of doing this, and after 2 days, after 9 weeks on the road, 2 days of doing this, and after 2 days, after 9 weeks on the road, 2 days of doing this. But London has become a bit of a foreign country in many, many ways, apart, of course, from Havering. And well done to Andrew Rossendale, Keith Prince, all the team in Havering for securing our first London borough. Although, of course, if you ask them, they say we're not a London borough. We ought to be in Essex. So I was pretty confident this morning when I did the press conference just before 9 o'clock. I was pretty confident of being able to cite Frank Sinatra by saying the best is yet to come. Suffolk, we've won just the most overwhelming majority. Quite extraordinary. Norfolk, with the biggest party. But I want to talk a little bit about Essex. I obviously saw the tendering results coming in last night, having been there and visited a few of the polling stations yesterday. And the fact we got a clean sweep there is amazing. It's amazing, really, given that I haven't visited Clacton once since I was elected. They take the piss out of me to get it back. So I was feeling good about it. But of course, Essex, we've put a superhuman. You've put a superhuman amount of effort into this over the course of the last couple of months. And indeed, I've spent a huge amount of time travelling around towns in the county, realising the sheer significance of a county that has half the shadow cabinet in it as members of Parliament, all of whom assumed they were very, very safe, particularly given the Kemi bounce. Oh, yes, the Kemi bounce, which is why Reform getting 38.5% of the vote, to the Conservatives 24.5% of the vote, and us getting 53 of the 77 seats is unbelievable. In fact, we haven't just crushed the red wall. Today in Essex, we've crushed the blue wall as well. It is an amazing achievement. If you look at the numbers, then Kemi Badenoch, who this morning gave a speech about the renewal of the Conservative Party. Kemi Badenoch, on these numbers, would lose her seat at the next general election. And so would Alex Burghardt, James Cleverly, the Chief Whip, Rebecca Harris, Richard Holden, Priti Patel, and my favourite. How can you be called Cleverly from Braintree? And to begin negotiating, giving away the Chagos Islands, which is exactly what he did. And you know, on issue after issue, where we think the Labour government are getting it wrong, we see the roots of all of it lie in those 14 years, and in particular, in the last 5 years of that Conservative government. And for all the efforts of mainstream media to boost Kemi, nobody is going to forgive them for the Boris wave, for the net zero recession, for the decline of law and order, for so many of the... for running down our defences to the extent we've barely got a Royal Navy that's operational. They're not going to be forgiven. So tonight, we celebrate this result. This Essex result just means so very much to me. But also, folks, bear in mind, whether you're in Thurrock, 45 out of 49 seats in Thurrock. I mean, there were some really extraordinary results right across the county. But I want to finish by saying this. It's a party, it's a celebration, there'll be music, there'll be drinking, there'll be fun to be had, I hope. I'm a great believer in it. Unlike Zach Palensky. You see, I mean, heroin's just not my thing. Or imagine a night out on the lash with Keir Starmer. I mean, it all beggars belief. But I want you to remember this, all of you that were elected today, getting elected to public office does carry.
Nigel Farage speaking in Chelmsford. We'll hear more from him and more from his party in the next hour. We're here right up until 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk.
just so happens that it's all you're amazing.
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. This is the Evening Exchange. If you're expecting what just happened, you can see it on YouTube or indeed over the weekend. We've got a specially extended programme of the Evening Exchange tonight because of the dramatic council results in England, the Welsh Assembly elections where Plaid Cymru have done very well, Reform UK have done very well as well, and in Scotland where the SNP looks set perhaps for a majority. All the results aren't in there yet. What the two real stories of the day are: Reform UK doing very, very well. You can see some of the numbers on the screen there at the moment, and they will change as time goes on if you're watching. Or I can just tell you that they've won over 1,300 new councillors in England. In Scotland, the SNP, as I say, have done well, but the real story is Labour doing tremendously badly. What should happen now? A friend of Keir Starmer, who's perhaps become a foe, certainly said a few things that are tricky for him. Carl Turner MP, now an independent, he will join us in just a second. It's you I want to hear from as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or a WhatsApp voice message 0344 499 1000. You can give me a ring on that number as well, and plenty of texts and tweets coming in too. You can tweet me at talkTV or follow me at Peter Cardwell. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. Angela's been in touch on Twitter. She says, even I am fearful of what this country has become, unhappy and fearful. We're pinning a lot on Reform UK, and I am worried the left will become even nastier over the next few years. It's so bad for democracy and our country. She also thought that Lucy Beresford, who was on the debate desk a little bit earlier on, was wrong in Angela's opinion. Amy has also said Starmer has to go now, but we all know that he won't. He doesn't really care what voters want and the message that they have sent him with these election results. Well, let's hear from the man himself, Keir Starmer. This is what he said earlier on today.
Let me be clear, these are really tough results. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And we have lost brilliant Labour representatives, people who put so much into their communities, so much into our party and our movement. And the voters have sent a message about the pace of change, how they want their lives improved. Labour's elected to meet those challenges, and I'm not going to walk away from those challenges and plunge the country into chaos.
Some would argue the country's in chaos already. I wonder what Carl Turner thinks, an independent MP now, but elected as a Labour MP. Carl, good to chat to you this evening. What are your thoughts, particularly about Starmer's future?
Good evening, Peter. Well, look, it was a disastrous set of results in England. I think Scotland and Wales are terrible results as well. So that's going to concentrate members of Parliament's minds when they go back to Parliament next week and see the projection for their own seats. But I don't think the PM is going anywhere, frankly. I think he'll hold on in. He will be determined to stay and finish the job that he thinks he's got a mandate to do. And despite the reality of the situation in terms of our electoral chances, I think he'll dig in deep. That's the ridiculous situation that we're in. And it seems to me that he's... nothing's going to change that much.
It's quite striking that a number of the members of the Cabinet have essentially said, yes, a tough night for Labour, but actually, you know, maybe not as bad as we thought. These sort of conciliatory messages have gone out on social media, but notable by their absence are some people like Wes Streeting, Shabana Mahmood, Ed Miliband. I know she's not in the Cabinet anymore, but she's certainly somewhat of interest in Angela Rayner. Can we read a lot into that, do you think? And what are they likely to do in the next few days, Carl?
Well, some of the support, Peter, has not been resounding, has it? Lisa Nandy put a statement out, but it hardly mentioned, I don't think it mentioned the PM by name. It just effectively spoke about the reality of the situation and how sorry she was that MPs had lost their seat. Some will say, well, that's because Wigan had all outs, and in fact, I think 22 Labour councillors lost their seat. So she's looking at the activists in her own constituency and treading carefully, perhaps. But the some of the support's not been resounding. I think the reality is every Labour MP, probably, if I'm being honest, has already decided that Keir Starmer's not going to fight another general election as the leader of the Labour Party. But they're wondering what's next. Where does the new leader come from? They're looking round the PLP and they're scratching their heads in disbelief because actually there isn't anybody who's ready. Angela Rayner's got the HMRC stuff still outstanding, so they're not going to rally round there for support to be the contester against the PM. Of course, Wes Streeting has his problems, or he thinks so, I think. Having had a relationship in association with Mandelson, I think it's unfair to a degree, to be honest, but that's the problem for him. And of course, Andy Burnham's not in and he can't get in. So they're wondering who's next, and that's part of the problem, and that's what's securing his position, I think.
Is this just an England problem? I mean, looking at Wales, that's been a total disaster for Labour.
Well, it is an absolute disaster for us in Wales, but a lot of the support for Keir Starmer amongst Labour MPs is from the Welsh Labour Party, actually. Joe Stevens, the Secretary of State for Wales, is very supportive of his leadership and premiership, and many others of those MPs are coalescing around the PM, but they must be looking now and thinking, goodness me, the doorstep was telling us they wanted rid of Keir Starmer. That's the truth, by the way. I was knocking on doors for the last 3 weeks. It was coming up time and again. It was not the policies entirely, although a little bit. Policy came up, but constantly the issue of Keir Starmer being the leader of the party was there present.
Weren't you not meant to be campaigning in the last 3 weeks if you've lost the whip from Labour at the moment?
Well, I'm a member of the Labour Party,
Yeah.
and my activists expect me to be involved and mucking in with them, and I want to support candidates in Hull, and I've been doing that, and it's been well received, actually, by them and by the electorate. But look, people realise that I've lost the whip for now, but it doesn't mean to say I have to leave the Labour Party. I think people often say the Labour Party's left me for now, but I've not left the Labour Party.
What have the electorate been saying to you? You've been knocking those doors for 3 weeks. What have people been saying to you? Have they mentioned Starmer specifically? Any policies or welfare issues, working from home? Winter fuel allowance. Apologies. I mean, what are the issues that are coming up on the doorstep?
Winter fuel's come up, and look, we rode back on that, but they're still not forgiving us. Fact is, we did it in the first place, and they feel it was a bad idea to attack pensioners. That's what they keep constantly saying. So that's there, but it's more about Keir, actually. It really, truly is. It's about his leadership. They want rid of Keir Starmer. He's not trusted. Look, I've been through the party when we had Jeremy Corbyn as leader, and I've got to tell you, he's not popular in East Hull, wasn't Jeremy. But actually, it's vitriolic for Keir Starmer in a way that it was never that bad for Jeremy Corbyn. There's pockets of my constituency who begrudgingly respected Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the party, but it's toxic when it comes to Keir.
Why is it toxic?
I think we went into the election promising to be competent, promising to be very different to what had gone before with the Boris Johnson premiership in the previous government. People was really annoyed about the shenanigans that happened during the COVID period, and they wanted a leader and a prime minister to be different to that, and they've seen that actually the shenanigans have continued in a way. Peter Mandelson's appointment, and then blaming everybody but himself for the appointment in the first place, has stuck in the craw, as it were. And I think that's the stuff that they're really annoyed about. And they think that he's not honest. They don't believe him. They think he's dishonest. I think it's unfair in a way, Peter, because I think what people see on the 24-hour social media stuff is the promises that Keir Starmer made to become the leader of the Labour Party, and they think that's the promises he made to become PM. And they don't understand how he dropped those promises to be the PM when, in fact, he was promising to do more of what Corbyn had said he was going to do.
What do we think, or what do you think about the Green Party, and what does Keir Starmer do now? Is he boxed in by Reform to his right and the Greens to his left? Because there are an awful lot of people who have voted Green today who haven't previously. Zach Polanski saying that the era of two-party politics is over.
Look, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Look, we were defending 8 seats in Hull. We lost 7 directly to Reform and 1 to the Lib Dems. But in each and every case, the Greens nicked our majority. That's the reality of it. We lost by 200 or 300 votes. The Greens were getting around that number to prevent us from keeping the seat. So it really is a problem to us. We're losing support from the progressives on the left, and indeed from the right as well. And I'm struggling to find a way of squaring that circle.
What about your own political future, Carl? What's going to happen?
Well, I'm not going to be kowtowing, Peter, to the Labour Party. I'm not going to be going along and pretending that I think doing away with the jury system is a good idea, because I think it's ludicrous. I've made that absolutely clear on every opportunity I've been given. So I'm not going to be doing any apologising. I think it's the Labour Party who need to apologise to me, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, and I can totally understand that from your perspective, Carl. It'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. Are the whips having conversations with you? What's happening?
Completely blanked by the whips, Peter, actually. In a way, that's fairly disappointing. There's been no discussion at all. They've not even explained to me the reason I was suspended. They just say conduct and leave it at that. So it's incredibly disappointing, makes me a little bit cross. But look, you know, I ought not to feel sorry for myself. People really do struggle in society, and I'm not one of those people, thank goodness. You know, put the violin away job, really.
I know what you mean. Carl, listen, thank you. Always good to speak to you and get your analysis there. Carl Turner, MP. It's interesting, actually, when an MP loses the whip. It's one of those things that a lot of people just don't understand, and I didn't understand it for a long time until it was explained to me. So he was part of the Parliamentary Labour Party. He is still a Labour Party member, and indeed was out campaigning for friends and colleagues of his, Labour councillors and people who lost their seats and things like that. But he's not on the in the Parliamentary Labour Party now because he's suspended. The whip has been suspended from him. So he's still a member of the Labour Party but not a Labour MP, which is kind of weird. Fran says, very scary about how well the Green Party did. I lived in Bristol, I live near Brighton now. We should be scared about what young people are being told, says Fran. Totally agree with you. Caroline in Norfolk says, evening Peter. Starmer starts all his interviews with the same words. Well, let me be clear, but therein lies the problem. In 2 years, he's been about as clear as mud. No one has a clue what he stands for. It's one U-turn after another, hence why we're in this mess now, says Caroline in Norfolk. Thanks to another person. He says, Nigel Farage is one of the biggest con men in this country. Brexit, for one, I can't believe, I bet he can't believe his luck. Millions of people are still voting for him. They certainly don't feel that way anyway. Another person says, Starmer's speech on Monday, more of let me be clear, my mandate, I'm listening. I can't bear to listen to his excuses. Thank you to Mark in Stratford, who says, Mark in Lincolnshire seems very bitter and angry towards Reform UK. In fairness, Mark in Lincolnshire, he did say, you know, well done to Reform UK. So I'm not sure he's bitter and angry. He did say well done to them. So that's fair enough. But Mark says he seems bitter. The other Mark says Mark in Lincolnshire seems bitter towards Reform, or more specifically Nigel Farage. This seems very typical of many Restore subscribers who seem to have issues when it comes to Rupert Lowe. Maybe it's Rupert's visceral enmity for Nigel is what drives them, rather than any genuine belief that Restore could get close to forming a government even in 3 years' time, which they have zero chance of doing. Jane in Milton Keynes has been in touch. Jane, I haven't heard from you in ages. How are you doing? I haven't heard from Jane in Milton Keynes, or maybe you've texted in another name or something, but I haven't heard from you in ages. It's great to have your company this evening. Thank you. Loving the show. Just a quick comment. We knew it was going to be seismic yesterday as we had to queue at the polling booths. That's never happened before, says Jane. Margaret in Birmingham says, Starmer's speech, I don't want to put the country through chaos. What planet is he on? We've had non-stop chaos since July 2024. Starmer just doesn't get it. Take the blinkers off and resign, says Margaret. I also want to thank Penny in Essex. He says I should be Prime Minister. I'm not sure that's a good idea, Penny, especially if you want the chaos to end. And Robin Darby has sent me a lovely message. I'm not going to read it out because my head will get too big for this studio. But Rob, it's a lovely message, and I really appreciate all your sentiments, and I appreciate what lots of people say, whether it is positive, negative, or otherwise. But Rob's is lovely, and I will treasure that one. So thank you for it. Plenty to discuss in the next segment. Stay with us here on Talk, and if you want to get your voice on the air, give us a shout. 0344 499 1000.
Peter Cardwell!
It just so happens that it's all you're amazing.
Right. Paul White!
face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you, everybody who has been in touch, including Stephen in London, who says, you're quite correct, the North isn't the home of the left, and we can go as far back as the referendum on Brexit to see that the Labour Party has deserted the core voting regions since before the referendum. The party has consistently ignored traditional Labour voters ever since, and the voters won't forgive them. Much the same with the Conservatives and their core voters. Les says, I've lived in Spain for 20 years. This local election put a spring in my step. Being a Clactonian, I now have hope for my kids and grandchildren who still live in the UK. Good show, mate, says Les. Thank you for that. Becca says, I think Diane Abbott and Arabicus should take over as Prime Minister and Chancellor. Betty says, there's no talking to Mark in Lincolnshire. He just wants out of the country so he can double his benefits. Just a bitter man. Well, I just don't think that's true, and Mark is a valued contributor. Rob in Sussex says, in response to Mark, the Tory vote was big enough to split the right-wing vote here in Worthing, allowing Greens and Labour to win seats. Shame, as we had to get more Tory votes over to Reform. Reform may well have taken Worthing Council. Ernie says, hi Peter, the nation has spoken. The British people have told the establishment that we don't want to be living in a stagnant country anymore. We don't want our politicians to just take their wages every week and live a comfortable life. We want them to be bold and invest in Britain and make us a country to be respected around the world like we used to be, says Ernie. And one more before we go to our next guest. Jules has sent in a message on WhatsApp, and remember, you can just WhatsApp those in on 0344 499 1000. Evening, Peter, says Jules. This overwhelming support for Reform UK is the country's message to Keir Starmer and Labour. We have had enough. This vote was predominantly protesting about the illegal migration crisis in this country, with women and children no longer feeling safe. The Conservatives promised to stop the boats and didn't. So we voted in Labour. They promised to smash the gangs. They didn't. So now we're voting in Reform UK as our last hope. The country is protesting the only way we know how, says Jules. Well, listen, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to think about, certainly in Reform UK. As you can see on the screen there, at 1,403 extra councillors today. Lib Dems 825, Conservatives 750, Labour 936, Greens 492, and others 230, including 10 in Great Yarmouth for Restore Britain, which is of course Rupert Lowe's party. There's an awful lot to think about today, but I do think we just need to take a little moment to remember that this peaceful transition is something that doesn't always happen in other countries, but it happens in our country, and long may that continue. I want to speak to Bradley Rowat now, who's a Conservative candidate for Durrington and Worthing. He didn't win his seat. Bradley, you're very welcome to the programme. I'm sorry that you didn't win your seat. Clearly, that must be disappointing to you. When you hear Kemi Badenoch saying there's a lot to be optimistic about, do you honestly agree with her?
Yes, I do. I do believe there's a lot to be optimistic about, and it's what we can see moving forward that there is to be optimistic about, because we've had periods where we've been hit back, but we've bounced back from it. When we lost in 1997, we thought we would come back, in the next parliamentary vote, but we didn't. But now we understand why we didn't, and we can see now why we're not going to bounce back so easily. But we've got to understand that we have to fight back for it. Let's have a little look at what Kemi Badenoch has been saying today. She struck a very upbeat note.
We need people to know that hope is coming. The Conservatives have to come back because, my goodness, this country needs us. We are coming back to fight for our high streets. We are coming back to fight for hard-working people. We are coming back to fight for businesses. We are coming back to fight for veterans, for parents, for farmers. We're coming back to to stamp out anti-Semitic hatred on our streets. We are coming back to deliver a stronger economy. We're coming back to deliver a stronger country. And we are coming back to get Britain working again. Thank you, everyone.
With Reform UK up 1,400 seats, they're the core party of the right in this country now, are they not?
They are the party on the right wing, but the centre-right is still fully maintained by the Conservative Party. We know our voter base. We know what we can offer.
They've lost over 550 seats today. I mean, many people will say you're just being far too optimistic.
It's the equivalent of saying that the party on the left has been replaced by the Greens because Labour have lost nearly 1,500 seats. It's not the same. We're seeing that we are still the dominant party on the right because we have those voters that will still support us. Reform UK will pass like UKIP did. Farage will eventually jump ship when polls start to shift in his favour, like he did with UKIP.
He'll jump ship. What do you think Farage will do?
He'll jump ship eventually when it's not in his favour.
In what way? In what way will he jump ship?
Well, UKIP, he jumped ship when that ended because something wasn't there for him anymore.
So where will he jump ship to?
He'll just enjoy his retirement eventually. He won't become a prime minister. I don't believe the British political system is in place for any other party but the two main parties to be in a position that allows it.
I think that's very optimistic, but listen, thanks for joining us this evening. That's Bradley Rowe up there, Conservative candidate for Durrington and Worthing. He didn't win his seat. Thank you for joining us on the programme. Kevin's in Leicester and has some thoughts on what's happened today. Kevin, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. Always a pleasure to speak to you, mate. I hope you're well.
Yeah, you too. You too, Kevin.
Good to know. The seismic today, really good. I wanted to make a bit of a comment. I mean, I didn't vote because my council's not voting until 2027. But
so you didn't actually have a vote even if you'd wanted one, Kevin?
I wanted one. We're still Conservative around where I am.
Okay.
But, that's, could be worse. But yeah, no, it's seismic today. I wanted to comment on a couple of things that, callers and messages have been said. It is brilliant. People need to see the positives in this.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one, you have someone just a minute ago, Nigel's a con artist, and did Brexit and all that. Nigel's never been in government to deliver it, so you can't hold that against him. I do things like that all the time. But the main thing I've rang up for, because I heard another person speaking, I'm a member of Reform, but I am also a member of Restore Britain.
Okay.
I joined Restore Britain as a movement, right? Because I still liked what Rupert said. I thought he spoke a lot of sense in that, but I'm a Reform member.
Mm-hmm.
However, Rupert always said he didn't want to create a party, he didn't want to cause division. But he went back on his word and created one. And then I've read mass deportations. I've actually read it. A lot of their members should do that. I won't be renewing with Restore Britain, and I'll be voting Reform. But even without that, I'll be, because that will cause massive riots, mass deportations. If you actually read it, it will. If you try and do it that way, it's worse than Trumpism. People criticise that. But the reason I'm saying I'd vote Reform, look at today, the left will vote for the party with the best chance of winning. They will do, because the left are smart, and right-wingers tend to be a bit dumb. I'm a right-winger. It's true. It is. Left-wingers are smart with voting.
Maybe they're just a bit more strategic. Do you think that's why that can maybe explain the vote in Scotland and Wales? SNP and Plaid Cymru, two nationalist parties?
Exactly that. And look at it. Go a bit more detailed. You look at Caerphilly. Do you remember the Caerphilly
by-election? The by-election. There was plenty of tactical voting there to keep Reform UK out. No doubt about that.
Exactly, and you've got to respect the left for that, and that's smart, and that's why, coming the next general election, I'm not saying Nigel's perfect, but I will, and anyone who wants real, not Keir Starmer, boring, fake change, real change to this country, you've got to vote for the party on the right with the best chance of winning, and that is Reform UK.
So when it comes to Restore Britain, what are you going to let that lapse? You're going to just keep with Reform UK?
Well, the thing is, I'm not going to renew it because it become a political party. I paid my membership when it was a movement. I won't be doing it. And the thing is, I speak to their members online, and I get better conversations with lefties. They're nasty people, some of them, not all of them. And then you heard, I'm not going to say his name, but you know who was on early run. He did say something positive initially about reform, but then at the end he's like, oh, yeah, we're going to batter them. And it's like, where's this attitude come from? I'm saying Rupert speaks a lot of sense.
Okay.
I do think mass deportations, the document, is a bit harsh. I wouldn't follow. There's plenty of other ways to skin a cat. But I like what he says. I'm not going to say bad about him. I'm actually quite sad that Nigel and Rupert didn't manage to get together. But everything happens for a reason, and maybe they're both too big for one party.
Okay.
I'll certainly be voting Reform because they've got the best chance. And anyone on the right who wants to actually really change this country, I've got to do what the left do. And they've just got to stick together. But it's doubtful.
Kevin, thanks for your thoughts. Lots of very good thoughts there. And Mark in Lincolnshire's call, clearly dividing opinion this evening. Whatever you think about what he said, do give me a shout, 0344 499 1000, or what Kevin said as well. Jason is in the Lake District and says Kemi is definitely the right leader, but at the wrong time. Her biggest problem is the Tories' legacy. She's a breath of fresh air to us, but sadly the Tories are toxic after their 14 years of betrayal. Grace is in London. You're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, yes. Hello. Thank you for listening to me. What I wanted to say is I've been a Labour supporter all my life. The only time I didn't vote Labour was with the Iraq War.
Okay.
I refused to vote then.
Yeah.
But I didn't vote Labour at this local election. And I may have a unique perspective on this, but what I think politicians, all of them, forget is that the public have long memories.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they also are not aware that we notice things, that they get so caught up in their bubble and in their strategy that they miss. And one of the things that I found really appalling was when Jeremy Corbyn was at his height of popularity, he was suddenly dissed in some way. The Labour surrounding him, at one point Keir Starmer stood beside him.
Yes.
But then Jeremy was somehow thrown out into the wilderness. And when I contacted my own Labour MP and said, what's happened to Jeremy Corbyn, this was a few months later, I got this no answer really. It was just that Keir's decided that these are the people he wants around him. So regardless of what you think about Jeremy Corbyn's politics, he was a Labour person and he galvanised the grassroots and he increased the membership. And he was treated like a public enemy. So that was very offensive to me.
Why was that offensive, Grace? Why should he not have been treated like a public enemy?
Because he was a Labour Party person who believed in what he believed in. I mean, you can disagree with it or not, but he shouldn't have been just marginalised as though he wasn't. The man had worked for many, many years. You can disagree. I didn't vote for him.
It's interesting, Grace, within that, of course, the party he's part of now, your party, which is a very, very fragmented party, is nowhere in all of this. I'm not sure they've actually won a single councillor, actually. Can we check that, actually?
No, I understand.
Your party, I just asked the team behind the glass to check if your party have won a single council seat. I'm not sure they have so far.
No, I think that's probably true. But the point is where there is a kind of, somehow it crosses over, is that Peter Mandelson, the architect of New Labour, and the thing is that I am a southerner, but I have lived north of the border. Mm-hmm. And I think people who've lived north and south have a slightly different perspective on politics.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And I saw the devastation of the mining communities many decades ago, and those people were left behind. They were failed.
Do you mind if I ask who you voted for in this election then?
Who did I vote for?
Yeah.
I voted Liberal Democrat.
Okay. And
I voted Liberal Democrat because they came to where I live, my district.
Yep.
They were really dedicated people.
Yep.
They were very, very nice. They worked very hard. They sent me a personal letter. They talked about issues that I understand.
And that is actually a reason to vote for a party. So Grace, very, very interesting to hear your perspective, not one we often hear on this station. So I really appreciate your call. That's Grace in London there. John in Lincolnshire sent me a text, 87222, to say, Peter, how many of these new Green councillors will actually be green and aligned to the party values on things like sexuality and drugs? I think sparks will soon fly. I think that's a very, very good point. How many of them actually want to legalise all drugs? Not that I think that should happen. I don't think John thinks that should happen either, I would imagine. Ian in Essex says, I live in Thurrock. Reform secured all but 2 seats. I voted for Reform. Nigel, please do not let your team let us down. Locally, we now have hope, but goodness help the country, I don't think we can last another 3 years under Keir Starmer, says Ian in Essex. And Shane has been in touch and says, thanks for another great show. The sun is just rising. It's early here in Sydney, says Shane. Well, Shane, thank you. I know you use us as your breakfast show, and that's wonderful and great. We have some great viewers and listeners right around the world, and it's interesting to hear what they think, of course, of what has happened in the local elections in England, the Scottish and Welsh elections too. We're going to speak to one of the country's leading pollsters in a second, James Johnson, and we'll take more of your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes right up to 10 o'clock when Ash and Andre take over. Plenty of opportunity still to get your voice on the air. Give us a shout, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's hear a voice note from Elisa in Chelmsford.
Peter, what I would like from a new Reform Council is for a human being to eventually answer the telephone, maybe after 4 rings, that'd be nice. I don't even mind waiting 10 minutes, not waiting 40 minutes and then the phone to be cut off. And then also not to have to fill in a contact form, which takes a minimum of 25 working days to respond to. Additionally, I'd like some potholes to be mended. I'd like cleaner streets. I'd like nice ambience in the community.
Elisa, I think all of that is perfectly reasonable, and I think that just says so much about what people actually want. We're not asking for loads. We're really, really not asking for lots. We want potholes filled. We want exactly what Elisa was talking about there, speaking to a human being, not being put on hold for long periods of time, just for this country to work, just for public services that we pay a huge amount of tax for, highest taxation burden since the Second World War as a proportion of what the country makes. Lots to discuss on all of that. I want to thank Mad Catwoman 67 on Twitter, yes really, who says, my hubby is away, so you're my guilty secret this evening. Great show as usual and some really good guests. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'm a Mad Cat man rather than a Mad Cat woman, but I appreciate that. Does your husband not allow you to watch me when he's there? I mean, I'm not sure I want to get in the way in your marriage, but nonetheless, thank you for the message. Much appreciated. Now, the former Downing Street pollster James Johnson joins me now. James, good evening to you. You've been a busy boy.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thanks. James is of JL Partners, which is one of the leading polling companies in this country and indeed abroad as well. It's a global company. James, tell me how this has been, what has shocked you, what has been interesting about this. Clearly, Reform UK have done very, very well. Maybe just go through the parties and tell me your impressions. And I suppose it's maybe a bit early to say, but what this means for projections towards the general election as well. I know it's apples and oranges to some degree, but if anybody can cut through the noise on it, it's you.
Well, thank you, Peter. Look, I think for Labour, this is obviously really torrid. I mean, the shifts away from Labour in some of these northern council areas are absolutely seismic. I was just before coming on was looking at a graph of Wakefield. And it went from sort of, Labour for the last 20 years to barely a bit of red on the map. Same goes for Sunderland, Newcastle. I think they've lost Gateshead for the first time in history. So there's been really, really big shifts away from Labour. Slightly better for them in London, but still real losses. It makes the Jeremy Corbyn days look like the glory years in terms of that they've seen. So look, really bad for Labour. I think Wales is really tough for Labour too. I mean, what's happened to Labour in Wales is going to be really tough for the party to swallow. We always just on the Conservative side, when Conservatives have said we're not doing well in Scotland or Wales, that's been tough for them. When their sort of national parties have risen up. That's a totally much bigger ball game for Labour, where they've always been in power in Wales. So very tough for Labour. Look, Conservatives, I think also a tough night. It seems like Kemi Badenoch is on a bit of a victory lap.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I mean, she's talking and saying how amazingly wonderful everything is and how the Tories are back. I mean, they're not, are they?
They're not, and indeed they've gone backwards in places where the results last time where the voting last time was completed at the peak of Boris Johnson's unpopularity during Partygate. They've lost seats. They've not got traction. They've done okay, reasonably well in places where they've historically been competitive, such as Wandsworth, Westminster, Swindon, but in many other places where they've historically been competitive, they've all been wiped off the map in places like Essex and Suffolk. So yeah, I'm not really sure why we're seeing a victory lap here, and I think it's in some ways I'd be more spooked if I was a Conservative activist than a Labour activist, because at least Labour are going to take something from this. It is almost certain that Labour are going to have to change tack and leader before the next election, whereas the Conservatives seem to think they're doing well.
We did hear projections from various people saying that Labour might lose 2,000 councillors. It doesn't look as if that's going to be the case. We were hearing that they might win places like Bexley in South East London, Kent border, where they haven't. The Conservatives have retained control of that. Swindon, the Conservatives have won that back. Also, I mean, in Hammersmith and Fulham, for example, Reform were hoping to pick up maybe a seat there, which they haven't done. I'm not taking anything away from Reform UK winning 1,402 extra seats, and well done them for doing so. But were the projections and were the estimations, did people lose the run of themselves when it came to that, do you think, James?
Look, I think what matters is the results on the day, and Peter, that parties love to bandy around these numbers in the press because they want to be able to say we did better, we did worse. Look, I think this is at the worst end of Labour expectations in terms of what was realistic, and I think this is at the better end of Reform's expectations in terms of what was realistic. It's true that there are some areas Reform has not broken into, but actually I think the story for Reform in this election is just how national their support is.
Yes.
They're able to win in somewhere like Suffolk and also able to win somewhere like Sunderland, win in places like Sunderland. So, that to me says they're becoming, the national party of the right.
Certainly. I want to talk about the Greens in a second, but your party hasn't won a single council seat under their own banner. There are some independents who have been affiliated with your party. I mean, it is the most flipping complicated party to cover because no one quite knows why. It's the sort of, you know, hokey-cokey party. Are you in or are you out? And who's with all the banners and the, you know, it's the People's Front of Judea, or as they would probably call it, the People's Front of the West Bank. Tell me your thoughts on your party. They've been kind of nowhere in this election.
Yeah, and look, that's because no one knows who they are, Peter.
Yeah.
When I talk in focus groups to voters about which party they're supporting, I don't think I've ever had someone say your party.
Okay.
Because they don't really know this thing. The launch was botched. They haven't been on the radar. They haven't had the candidates, and the Greens have stolen their thunder. So, look, they weren't on the map in these elections, and I don't think they're going to be on the map in other elections either.
Tell me just finally about the Greens and how you think they have done. Should Zach Polanski be a happy man today?
I think the Greens have done well. They're clearly, one of the victors in this. I think they're probably the party that should be second most happy behind Reform. But I also think that these results show there is a ceiling on the Green support. You know, Reform have managed to eclipse the Conservatives on the right. It doesn't seem like the Greens have done that to Labour. It seems like they're not really going to be able to break beyond 20% of the national equivalent vote projections that John Curtis and Rawlings and Thrasher do. It says to me, like, yes, the Greens are an important party on the left that are doing much better this year than last year, but I'm not seeing them be a mainstream party. And I don't think it's a huge surprise, by the way, because we know that Zach Polanski's approval ratings in the last week have really fallen through after his comments on the police response to that Golders Green attack.
Certainly. James, thank you. Always good to talk to you. James Johnson there from JL Partners, former Downing Street pollster. We made a little mistake earlier. Apologies for that. Sadia was actually the person who sent us the voice note talking through about, you know, what she wanted and having resources from her council and having the phone answered and all the rest. Elisa from Chelmsford did send us a voice note, and we're very happy to play it now with our apologies. Here's Elisa from Chelmsford.
Good evening, Peter. I've been really impressed by Kemi over the past couple of weeks, particularly with her stance on anti-Semitism. However, the speech she gave today was a victory speech, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Phil absolutely nailed it in what she should have said. And as for Starmer, how many times has he said, "Let me be clear"? Good grief, the man is a robot with cotton wool in his ears. I understand several of his colleagues were repeating the "I'm not going to sugarcoat it" line. They really do take us for fools. Anyway, the guy I voted for won today, so it's celebrations for me.
Okay, Elisa, thank you very much, and apologies for getting that wrong earlier on. 3 hours of live radio. Mistakes happen. We're not perfect people. I'm certainly not a perfect person by any stretch of the imagination. We'll take some viewer calls in just a second as well. If you want to get on the air between now and 10 o'clock, 0344 499 1000. We're hoping to speak to a guest in Scotland as well. He's on a bus, and if he gets off the bus in time, we'll talk to him before 10 o'clock. So stay with us here on Talk.
That it's all "you're amazing."
Right. Paul White! Sir Lenny Henry!
I was face down and the dog sniffed my crotch. It was very, very embarrassing.
Staying out for the summer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Philip's in South Wales and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Philip, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Yeah. If you remember, I spoke to you a couple of months ago.
Okay.
And
Good to chat to you again.
I said that the Labour would be wiped out in Wales.
And you were right.
Yes, and what I can't understand is with this Starmer is that how come he doesn't realise that the British public do not want him?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't he realise that?
He's a lot of evidence, doesn't he, Philip? But he doesn't seem to get it. He says he won't be put off and he's very determined to get the job done and all the rest of it. What would you say to him right now, Philip, if he's listening and if you had something to say to the Prime Minister? What would your message be?
I would say to him, you were so stupid. You were more stupid than two planks.
Right.
Why
so he
won't
should
you
go
listen to the Brits?
And when you have a Plaid Cymru, you have a Plaid Cymru government, probably minority administration now in Wales.
Yes.
In theory, I suppose they could go into coalition or something. It doesn't look as if that's going to happen. How do you think Wales will change as a result of that, Philip?
I think it's going to change for the better. To be honest with you, I voted for reform.
Okay.
And Nigel Farage, which I told you a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I remember.
And as I said, it was between Plaid Cymru and reform.
I mean, those are two parties that believe very different things for you, Philip. But clearly, Labour. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but presumably you feel so let down by Labour that any other party or those two parties, because they're quite strong parties, were ones you were thinking of voting for. Just tell us your sort of thought process and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, I voted Labour for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see after Starmer was in office for the first 2 months, I could see then that he's going to be a disaster. He's going to be a disaster. But I think that Plaid Cymru now and reform, if they do amalgamate or whatever, they'll turn things around in Wales, yes.
Okay, very, very interesting to hear from you there, Philip. Thank you. Keith in Huddersfield is on the line too. Keith, what's your perspective this evening?
Well, firstly, I'd just like to say you spoke to somebody regarding the Labour Party, the people that they have that can get rid of him or replace him.
Yes.
How about Carl Turner?
Do you think Carl Turner should be the leader of the Labour Party?
Yeah, for the next 3 years.
Okay.
I'm not going to vote for them, but I'd rather have him there than any of them that's on that bench now.
Okay.
Right. The other two things is Barnsley and Wales, especially at Valleys. Right. When Thatcher come to power, she destroyed industries in that area, which were mining in both areas. After that, we had Major. Then I think we had a Labour government. He fetched in when Blair got in. I think it was the first time that so many people at a university, mainly lawyers, that entered Parliament. They did nothing for Wales and Valleys. They did nothing for Barnsley. Were strong Labour supporters. All they carried on doing were closing them down. And what we have to do now, as far as I'm concerned, is I'm an English lad. They should be going back into Wales now, and they should be opening some mines and see if they can open any around Barnsley again. I don't know if they can do it, but that's what they should do.
Okay.
Because they've let them down badly.
Thank you, Keith.
Labour Party.
Okay, Keith, really appreciate your call this evening. Martin's in Cambridge. Martin, it's been a little while since we've spoken. It's great to talk to you again. What's your perspective on what's happened today?
Peter, yeah, we are seeing the death of the Labour Party. It started with Keir Hardie and it's dying with Keir Starmer because they've basically forgotten what the Labour Party is for. As like your previous people said, we working class people north of Mansfield, the Midlands and the North, we're socially conservative and we tend to veer left on economics. And what that means is we want local industries. We make things. And when we had the mines and stuff, we had a synergy, or electronics and fabrication and all these kinds of stuff.
Can that be got back, do you think?
Forgotten all that.
Why did they forget it? How did they go wrong, Martin, in your opinion?
Because they got taken over by an elite who believed that university was everything and not the university of life. They forgot what their core values were, and basically reform are left of centre when it comes to economics, and they believe in nationalising things. And the Labour Party is finished because all it believes in is wokedom, in progressiveness and all this, that and the other. But my big fear, Peter, last time I spoke to you, I said to you, Keir Starmer has one last throw of the die.
And this is it.
On the EU.
You think he's failed now?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think they'll keep him on until probably September. But do you know what I would put in power? John Healey.
That's an interesting one. I mean, he's a pretty low-profile cabinet minister. He is, of course, Defence Secretary. We're talking about Iran a lot at the moment. But do you think that he is someone who could be maybe a uniting leader? Because, I mean, I can imagine he would be, but he would often have the same criticisms, bit low charisma, maybe not that exciting as a person, maybe a bit technocratic. And that's a lot of what Starmer has been accused of.
Yes, absolutely. But the other ones are too divisive. Because there's no talent in the Labour Party. They have nobody who've worked on the factory floor. They've got nobody who's they're all lawyers and they're just useless. Okay. All of them are absolutely useless, Peter. And they need to listen to people north of Newark and work out where their heart is. Because the Labour Party is finished, Peter. Because we will remember this. They will not get elected again in 24 years, at least 4 elections.
Okay. Martin, listen, thanks very much. I just want to briefly talk about the situation in Scotland. We know that the SNP has held on there. Not all the results are in, but I'm delighted John Boothman, who's a political correspondent for the Scottish edition of the Sunday Times, is with us now. John, good evening to you. Just tell us what's been happening. A few losses for the SNP, but do you think they'll get a majority when all the results are in? 91 in at the moment, I think, of 129.
I think a wee bit more than that now, Peter. I can honestly say they won't get a majority. I think John Swinney's going to be 5 or 6 down than the SNP were the last time.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting. I mean, can they rule as a minority? Will they be looking to maybe the Greens? I know they've had a fractured relationship with them to get them over the line, or what do you think will happen?
Look, the way it's sitting at the moment, the SNP and the Greens should quite comfortably have an independence majority. I suspect John Swinney will want to go it alone. The fascinating thing that's happened, there's 2 list areas to come in. That means 14 seats, is that Labour and Reform are literally neck and neck. So we should know before the end of the night which one of those 2 parties is going to be the second biggest party in the Scottish Parliament. But, SNP sitting at 58 seats, both of those parties will get less than 20. And then the Tories and the Liberal Democrats and the Greens will be behind that.
What do you make of Reform UK picking up 5 seats? Was that expected?
Well, they've picked, they've picked up a lot of seats in the list. They didn't win any seats in any of the constituencies. The SNP mopped that up. If anything, Reform's intervention in the constituencies actually handed those seats to the SNP. Labour has said this from the very beginning: vote Reform, get SNP, and that, by and large, is what happened.
What is it about the SNP? Why are they so indestructible? They've had scandal after scandal after scandal. We've talked about them on numerous occasions, yet here here they are, still the dominant party in Scotland.
Look, I think they're the least worst option, and that's what this election's been about since from the get-go. You know, the simple fact of the matter is Labour didn't get anywhere because of Starmer and his unpopularity. The electorate's pretty disillusioned. I spoke about that intervention of reform. The other intervention from the Greens has been interesting too. They didn't stand in most of the constituencies. They stood in 6 out of 73, and that helped the SNP along.
Very, very interesting. Listen, John, thank you. Appreciate you joining us this evening.